And photography is 90% physical. You have to move. You have to get down on the ground and roll. It's combat. It's obedience, protection, obedience, protection. There's no time that you get to go sit down. You're just going.
It's crazy, even how you describe it, it's crazy.
A real photo, the photographer needs to be invisible. You need to go through that and you're living that scene and it's perfectly rendered. Anybody can get a few good photos. But it's being able to consistently go out and deliver a good package of photos and understand the sport. Love the dog first. You'll see that over and over, and relationship and harmony, the passion for their dog. And I'll make sure that that story levels out with the action that you're seeing. I pulled the first photo up, my heart sunk. I shot 8,000 photos today with this camera. And I'm thinking, what on earth? People are going to be upset. So we had to get risky and go for it. You know, through those situations, some of your best photos come.
It's the same. It's amazing. Like there's just this mystical experience of watching IGP. Like you really nailed it. All right, everybody. Training Without Conflict, podcast number 35. Today, I'm talking to Brian Aghajani. And pretty much anybody that has done IGP on a little bit higher level than club trials, chances are that you have some really cool pictures that he has taken for you. So, Brian, welcome to the podcast. We've been trying to make this one for quite some time. But yeah, right before Christmas time, here we go. Tell me a little bit, I know I'm kind of joking, but we're reaching people that are not only IGP people, and just kind of tell me a little bit about yourself so people know who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, I'm excited to be here, Ivan. We've been talking about it, and I've listened to the podcast, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan of you, and so it's an honor to be here. I'm an IGP enthusiast. I'm a participant, IGP dog sport, Schutzhund. I'm a participant. I'm a dog owner, and then probably best known for photography, not for my training, but photography. And I've been doing it. I've been into dogs my whole life, but into working dogs since 2000 or 2001, and began photography in IGP dog sport photography focus, which I'm sure we'll speak about in more detail. But I started about 10 years ago. And have traveled extensively, many places doing so.
So when you say 2000, it has to be 2000 because I am so bad with dates, but eventually I moved from California to Florida, and we did have the opportunity to meet each other quite a few times in the club at San Jose, I believe, and a bunch of the other clubs, but I think it was mostly the San Jose club. So I want to say, if you don't know where you started, probably was 2000.
I think so. I was in the sport for about 6 months, and I was training at Menlo Park Schutzhund Club.
Okay.
And you had a seminar at South County, and AJ Singh told me about you being there, and I didn't know who you were. I was very new in the sport. I didn't know anybody. I knew nothing beyond the horizon of that club that I was training at, and the people that were training there was the full extent of my knowledge of the sport. And we went to that seminar, and I was massively influenced. And I remember walking on the field and being rigid and really serious. And you're looking at me and you said, Brian, stop, play with your dog. I'm like, what? Because I saw everyone. I was, I was trying to mimic what I saw people walking out with a stick up their backside and
Right.
being rigid and formal. And I had no idea what was going on and no feel or anything and no relationship. I loved the dog, but it had no relationship. And you said, play with your dog. I'm like, what? And uh, and that was the beginning. I had been to many of your seminars at that point. I think a handful of seminars after that. But we
Right.
did train some at South County. You were there on I think Sundays or Saturdays, and then you moved. And I had just become enamored with the whole philosophy of your training and you moved. I was heartbroken. I remember writing you a letter and saying, I just when I get a taste of this, and now you're moving,
What I
and
do?
yeah, it was, and you said thank you for the kind words. Probably don't remember, but over the course of the journey, some people come in and have a big influence on you, and you certainly did for me. I saw many different styles of training, and some of them they didn't make me feel good, but I liked the results. I didn't know better, and then you came along, and the training was fun, and it was intelligent, and it was intuitive and natural development and shaping of the dog, and I had never seen that. I mean, I've seen variations of that since, but that was the first impression I had. I had never seen it. And then the fun stuff where you climbed a tree and you're doing a holder bark from up in a tree and hanging down from a tree, or that you ran in behind a bunch of people and the dog sent the dog in. And I thought that was just crazy. And at the very beginning, we were sitting around talking, and I was really green. And you said, "Have you done helper work?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Put on the sleeve." And
I remember
you had a
this.
dog named Cindy,
Cindy.
and you said, "Run down the
That was
field and hold the arm
Kenny's
out."
mom. Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm going to get bit." But I said, I got to do it because I've got to do it. So I was sure I was going to get bit. And I ran, but as fast as I probably ever ran in my whole life, thinking I'm going to get bit in my butt. I hanging the sleeve off, and I caught him, turned around. I didn't really catch him. He caught me, spun me around, and then I slipped. And he said, "That was really good. You need to think about helper work." And then of course you
So
moved
cool.
shortly after that.
Yeah, yeah. That I remember this. I really do. That was Cindy was Kenny's mom, the one that I won the world championships with, and I remember me taking her just to get some fun bites so she doesn't lose her mind there. That was the time when we also, I don't know why and how that tradition, but everybody started to bring all sorts of alcohol every single training sessions to where
Yeah.
we ended up with like these two big, huge barrels of alcohol.
It was so much fun, and the music and the hard lemonade, and it was just a very fun time. I think the hook was sunk in me at that point for dog sport. It became a passion more than a sport, more than a hobby. It became my passion.
So wild. So where are you guys now?
We're in Houston,
Houston.
Texas. Yeah, yeah, we're
How
in
long you
Texas.
been there?
I've been here for 8 years.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So the journey, I've traveled a lot over the course of my life, different places. Before the age of 8, I had lived in 3 countries in 4 cities. And then
Wow.
at the age of 14, I moved back to the United States, and we settled in Northern California, and I stayed there for 20 years. I was born in San Francisco. And then we moved to Reno, Nevada, and then we moved to my parents split. I moved to Dublin, Ireland. I
Oh,
lived in Dublin.
wow.
Yeah, my mom's Irish, and so we lived. That's the Brian is really
Oh,
my
wow.
name. So I lived in Dublin, and then I lived in Tehran, Iran, for a year. Then came back to the United States, and then went back to Tehran. I lived there for 3 years, and this takes us up to I get back and forth between these countries
Wow.
till I was a mid teenager, and then I lived in Northern California and grew up there. Lived there, developed a number of my career, the work that I do, and then racing and things of that sort. And in 2010, I moved to Los Angeles with my day job, my business work. And I've been with this company, and I'm sure we'll probably get into that topic because it's all interrelated. The photography and the
Yeah.
dog sport.
Yeah.
It's a braid, a tapestry. but I lived in Los Angeles, and then I got promoted to a higher position within the company, and that was in Houston. Never been to Texas, and we moved out here. And
I mean, if you're staying that
it's eight
long,
years. In.
you must like it.
Uh, yeah. Well,
Really, I
yeah. Well,
wouldn't stay that long if I had questions.
uh, well, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. So with work, the work that I do, it's immersive. I'm very engaged in it. So that keeps me busy. And then I travel a lot. So I could be stationed in anywhere and it wouldn't make much difference because between the local area that I work and then my travel for photography, I could be anywhere. So this is home base.
Gotcha.
And it's relative to California, it's much more reasonable to live. So the standards of living are nicer because it's much cheaper than living in California.
What about I don't want to go deep into politics, but I'm definitely really curious, just my curiosity. How easy, or is it even possible to go back to Tehran, to Iran, or how is that? Like if
I've never been back.
no,
So yeah, that's a tough one. So
but do people find
they
ways
do.
to go back and forth?
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah, sure, sure. I don't know much about it because I've never done it, but
right,
it can go very wrong very quickly. So
right.
I'm not an expert on Iranian politics and the laws, but
Yeah, yeah.
I do know that when I left, my father got stuck there and couldn't leave, and that was a pretty traumatic period in our life. For 20 years, he couldn't leave that country. So I wouldn't go back now because something could. I'd be curious to go interestingly, on the social media platform for photography, I have quite a few people from Iran that message. They see the name and they're into dog sport, and I
Okay.
had no idea because when I've always loved dogs, and when I lived there, I'd rescue dogs. I've always had. Before I got my first working dog, I had rescue dogs, always rescue dogs, and I rescued 3 dogs, and just coincidentally they would all disappear. My grandmother didn't agree with the dogs being at the house, and so
Right.
I'd come home from school and she's, oh, he got away, and so I'd go rescue another one and that one would get away. So
Yeah, that's where we
but
have quite a bit of similarities, like you and I, with the way we grew up. How about the? I know it's gonna come back at me, but have you guys done, like you and Jessica, any interesting van trips lately? I'm going to California for mid-March, giving like a little workshop and presentation thing, and that would be really the first time. I mean, we see each other with the vans at
yeah,
competition
yeah.
and stuff, but that will be really the first time that we're gonna go cross country. And then the plan is either before or after the workshop. Like Utah comes to mind because they're
Oh
all on the
wow,
way,
yeah,
right? They're
yeah,
all on the
yeah,
way,
yeah.
but I think it's gonna be Utah, probably like a week or so.
Well, we should probably share with your audience what we're talking about, the
Yeah,
van life experience, the the romance of the road in a van, and living simply out of a van with as few things as possible, where every inch of space matters, and you have to plan so that you can live on the road out of a van. And so we have a short wheelbase 144 Sprinter van, high top with a 4-wheel drive, and it's got a modular interior. So it's not a mobile home. It's we could take the bed out and we could take the chairs out, and I could put motorcycles in it, and I
yeah.
can take it out and put some crates and so forth. And we've taken a few road trips, not as many as I'd like. The goal here is after I get the editing done for the AWMA and USCA, which I'm almost done with, I've got a break before AWDF next April, and we've got some free time to enjoy and travel. But it actually came out of necessity because gradually our pack of dogs has grown. We had when I was before I met Jessica, I had a couple of old working dogs, and they had retired, and then gradually I lost each of them, and We didn't have dogs, and so I flew to every event. And there was a time I was flying to I did every regional, every national, and I was doing worlds, and I was rarely home. I was working, and then I was traveling. And if I wasn't doing that, I'm in this room, which is an editing studio, and that's all I was doing. Then I met Jessica, and she had a dog, and then she had two dogs, and then I rescued a dog that was on the freeway, and we had three dogs. And then I got a dog. We had four dogs, and then we took two kill shelter rescues on their final hour. Now we have those that we're fostering
I
right
love
now, and temporary foster. I keep saying,
Right.
but it's impractical to give all these dogs to people when we travel. So we end up traveling with the dogs. It makes it easier just to go with the dogs, and then.
And the
we
big
turned
bird, not forgetting.
oh yeah, that's right. We have a parrot. The parrot comes with us and talks the whole way. It keeps us company. So it's a pack, and we travel well. We've got it figured out. We travel well. We've got a bed in the camper. Well, that's not the van, and power and heat. But it's very rustic. I mean, it's not luxury living. It's just living on the road, oh, it's just like a nomad.
I know.
But I love it.
feel
The idea, it's awesome feeling. Waking up and you're on the road, it's super cool. I love it.
exactly, and as long as we have some good coffee in the morning, right? It's still good.
That's all. Yeah, you have the coffee. I have a pour over setup that I do with the Haro coffee pour over, and the perfectly 16 grams of coffee with 300 grams of water at 212 degrees, and it's poured over 3 minutes. I've got this
have it
routine
down.
to make 2 minutes of Zen in the morning.
Exactly.
And then I've got a table in the van that I can edit. I've got commercial grade Wi-Fi in there, so I can upload the photos, so I can work while we're on the road. I can't edit. I can do selections when we're driving because it's too bumpy. I can't, and the
Oh, right.
adjustments are too fine. But I can do selections and tagging and get a lot done. And it's just it's living the experience of a traveling photographer at the extreme, and it's awesome. You like it?
I feel like one of the downsides will be on our trips, because we also gonna most likely take at least 3, if not 4 dogs with us. We have the space, of course, but it's I know that their food will take more space, and we're gonna suffer to make sure that they have their food all stocked up and everything.
Well, we pull a trailer. So a dog trailer, and it's self-contained. I got a dog shower in there. I got food. I got big 5-gallon survival containers of water.
Oh, wow.
So it's all self-contained for them, and then we live inside. And if it gets really hot, which has happened a few times in travel, we'll bring them in. I have a way to set up to have the dogs inside, but generally they're in the dog trailer. It's a WT trailer.
Man, we'll see what happens. I'll let you know. I'll be calling you. I'll be like, oh, this fuse, the fan is not working. What do I do?
Yeah. The next planned road trip is Indiana, from Houston up to Indiana for WDC
Nice.
Nationals. Yeah.
So my thought came back. It was, I did the podcast with Louis Donald.
Mm-hmm.
And
I listened to it. It was great.
And I got the book, but I didn't know that you had so many pictures in it, and it was so cool. Like all of us, they all came as a surprise. As I was just taking a very quick look through everything.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm just gonna take a look at the book for just briefly, and next thing you know, I'm like half an hour deep into looking at stuff.
Yeah.
And then I saw so many cool pictures. So that was very cool that he reached out, because it's impossible to do something like this all by yourself. And I think it was very cool to, you have this thing, we have talked about this, that, as a photographer, you have the opportunity and the eye to present what we do to people that are not involved in this crazy sport, right? And when we talk about public relations and all these bans and all these things, and when you really think about it, pictures are very valuable in this whole conversation. And man, like when was the like the I'm sure you still get nervous when you're taking pictures or
Oh God,
audio,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So
Because there is weather, there's just so many factors that everything has to function,
yeah.
and you have to
Yeah.
make the pictures, because probably now it's even like how I remember when I first started to compete and nobody cared. They were all going to take beers and whatever, and I had the field on my own and I can screw up and nobody, now it's so hard. Everybody has to watch and everybody has to nitpick, and I'm sure with you now, if somebody wants pictures from you, it's like they think that it's guaranteed that they will have some amazing pictures, and you have to be under more pressure now than before to make sure that you deliver, right?
Yeah. That's true, and I don't want to think that, but it's true. So I mean, if I think that way, I'll choke, right? So that's I think what separates just like a hobby photographer from someone that's professional of any sport.
Right.
So there's a technical aspect of knowing how to use the camera and how to make an image. So for sure, you couldn't do this unless you understood the basics of action photography and how to use the camera, exposures, and how to capture an image. And then there's the movement, the muscle memory of how to pan and be smooth so that you can fill a frame and keep the subject within the frame. And I mean, at this point, I probably shot 4 or 5 million photos. So you get a lot of through a lot of repetition and in mistakes, you learn.
Right.
So that's the basics. And I hope we get to speak through the pathway of how we got to this place where I'm at now with photography. But it started in a whole different area of photography. But that was profoundly influential to where I'm at now.
No,
And
no,
maybe
definitely can go right away
yeah,
in it,
yeah.
because
Okay,
I'm
we'll
curious
jump
for
into
sure.
it. So it's not been a consistent linear path. There was a interruption, but that interruption had an influence on how I do my photography now. So it started when I was 18. I got my first DSLR, and actually going before that, when I lived with my father, he had DSLRs and video cameras. I used to pick them up and play with them, but it was very expensive, and I couldn't afford it. But I loved it. The concept, the idea of a camera and looking through the viewfinder, just the experience of capturing was very compelling for me. And then in junior college, after high school, I attended classes and I did black and white photography and I did portraiture, and I really loved it. So, but at minimal level, because I had a kit camera,
And
inexpensive
that was
gear.
way before digital
Oh
stuff
yeah, no,
came
we're
out,
talking.
right?
This is when it was still film. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, this is still film. And then I was doing that. And I got into motorcycles when I was a late teen,
That's right.
and that took over a huge part of my life. It became I was riding bikes on the street, and somebody said I was up in the mountains riding very fast like a lunatic, and I passed a bunch of racers, and one of the guys came up when we stopped and said, "Are you a racer?" And I said, "No." They said, "You need to get on the track, dude. You're like you need to go." So I'm like, and I'm a young kid. I have no idea. They said, "Bring your bike over, and we'll set it up for racing. We'll dial you in. We'll get you to the track. You need to be on the track." And that was like just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And these guys were racers. They set my bike up. Then I went out racing. And for the next 10 years, I raced. And through that, I got immersed massively into racing. There was nothing else. That level of passion was huge. And the only reason I speak to that is for anyone that's been completely engulfed in pursuit of passion and trying to achieve something, it pushes a lot of things out, and you go deep, deep, deep into the mind, right? And I did that for 10 years, and at some point I thought I don't want to do it anymore. I started to get a little bit aware of the danger, which is when you should
Oops.
stop racing, right? And just about then, I had a huge, massive crash and shattered my leg, and so it left a huge hole it left a huge hole in my life because I didn't have this passion that made me. It was like it was bigger than life. It's like you're out there, it was purpose. It gave meaning. It was beautiful. It was something that just
Right.
it had poetry to it, and it's fire and ice. Like you'd win or you'd crash, right? I mean, talk about the extremes. You come in and you're a lunatic, and everyone's celebrating you for being a lunatic and calling it brave, and then other times you crash, and then you're alone in the van and no one talks to you, and it was an amazing experience. But what that left me is as
I
crazy
know
as it
what you
sounds.
mean.
I I loved it. It's still in my blood. I still love speed, but I have no desire to go racing like that. I got it out of my
So
system.
you got some
But
metal on you or no?
I have many. I have 10 broken bones.
Yeah.
I've got a leg that's at an angle. I've
Yeah,
got
of
bones that
course.
stick out.
It just comes with it. It's
Yeah,
inevitable. It's kind of like the cauliflower ears if you stay
yeah.
long.
And that,
I mean, it's just how it goes.
if you look, my leg is a banana leg. I don't think about it except when
Right.
it's cold and I wake up and I'm hurting and my back hurts. So that had me looking for things to do, and I started doing cameras again at this point. But dogs came into the picture, and I was doing dogs for a while, which hopefully we'll talk about in detail. And when my dogs got old, again, I had the same feeling. And I got in. I had a time when the two dogs were retired. I had moved to LA, and I was looking for something to do, and I would pick up the camera and I'd go out and I would walk the streets and shoot people, photograph
Wow.
people, street photography, and I loved it. So I'd have a camera and really incognito catch people on the street, and I'd shoot a little bit of landscape or architecture, but mostly I was shooting people. And I started taking classes down because I was in LA, and I'm like, this perfect place. And there's lots to do that, right? LA is like that's there's no
For
shortage
sure.
of people that are subject experts in production and photography and lighting. So, and I got into it really deep, and I started doing studio photography and then shooting in the classwork you'd shoot models, and then I went
Yes.
to some group meetings where we do shoot models, and I met a model and started to date that model, and she had me photographing people, and I was very always been extremely technical, and so my photography was technical, sharpness, a composition, just making exposure, color grading, all that stuff was very good. She would look at the work and say it's terrible. I'm like, it's perfect. She
Wow.
goes, it's terrible. She goes, there's no connection.
Uh-huh.
There's no energy in the picture. There's no connection. And so I gradually, over the course of time, a year or two of shooting and doing some catalog work and stuff, understood angles and energy and connection.
The picture's
Came
not talking back at you,
be,
right?
became aware, right? What makes an image pull you into it, make you look at it longer than a few seconds? And so the obvious of dynamic action or color or a subject that's just by itself amazing. But if you take an ordinary subject, how can you capture a moment within that? And so when you're doing a model shoot, you might shoot 300, 400 shots. Within that, there's one or two shots that are like the shot. And having the awareness of picking out which shot is the shot is an acquired for most people it's an acquired skill. For sure, for me it was not natural. I had to be shown
Really?
over and over and over. It was much harder for me to learn that than dog training, honestly, because I didn't see it. So that aspect, over time you grow, and I think my work was good, but I wouldn't say extraordinary, and not enough that I was a standout within that a very deep field of talent shooting that type of work, beauty and portrait work. So in 2012, I think it was, I said I should shoot a dog event. I kind of miss dogs. Let me go shoot some dog events. And I went out in LA and shot a couple of there was a seminar there of a German fellow that was there, and then a club trial. And I go, hey, this is kind of cool. And so then in 2000, I started studying action photography, and I went in 2014, shot the Northwest Regionals. I booked to shoot that, and I rented all the gear. I spent $700 for that event to rent a 400 millimeter lens, two bodies, and a 70 to 200 because I had portraiture cameras, which are totally different. They're useless for sports, right? They're slow and uh, they're just not the short lenses. It's not the right stuff. I had very nice portrait and street photography camera gear. So I rented this and at Lincoln, California. So John Raboni's place,
Yeah,
Placer County,
yeah,
and Tim Cutter was the helper, and I can't remember who the second helper was in there. And we had a great time, and I sold a bunch of photos, and everyone loved their photos. And it felt good. I just felt you just know when you hit like
correct.
this is I need to do this. So I get home and people are contacting me and they go, "Hey, I really like the photos." I went out and I spent $25,000 on camera gear. I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go the deep end. And now there's no turning back, right? I got to
Right,
make this
right.
shit pay for itself, right? So I bought a 400 lens, which is like a $12,000 lens. I bought two camera bodies. I just went to town and I booked every regional in the country except North Pacific Northwest, but everybody else. I think I shot everyone that following year.
Wow.
AWDF, USCA Nationals, WDC, and people love their work. And I look back at that work, and there's a lot to learn. But action photography was fairly easy. I think anyone can study for a week or two and understand shooting fast shutter speed and getting a long lens and short depth of field. That's not that hard. Knowing what to shoot, you need to know the sport. And I've been doing this sport for a
Right.
long time, and I love the sport. So you know what makes a good shot. You know what people want to see. So that's important.
But I
And then I
actually just remember where you're at, because I just have to interrupt here, because when you say you know what to shoot, like I see you with every time, like between you and Jessica and the way you set up and what you look at, it's almost like how dog training evolves, and there is that challenge to show something else, something new, something more intriguing that catches you. It's like, oh, how is that happening? How is that healing or
okay.
recall or dumbbell? And you're doing exactly the same thing with the photography. Like what where I'm going. Like now you're looking at everybody has that shot on the sendout. There is like this standard classical pictures which
Yeah,
you
yeah.
cannot take away. They're definitely a must-have.
Right, right.
But now you have came with other pictures that are just so intriguing, and it's like, whoa, look, this is
Yeah,
a good one,
yeah, yeah.
because it's a different take on the sport altogether. Anyway,
Well, no, you're right on the money. So at the beginning, getting your standard collection of each of the exercises, that was success. And when people have seen that at a very high grade of photography, so I studied action photography probably at a ad nauseum beyond what normal rational people would study. So I wanted to understand how to shoot action and how to do it correctly. And I studied football and motorsports and all the different types of some of the best known photographers to try to understand how they do it and then bring that into our sport, because at the time that I was started, there was nobody shooting like this. The quality of the photography. I mean, I look at photos that I competed at a few nationals and in 2005, 2006 and 2008. And the photos are not very good. I don't mean to any disrespect, but they're
no,
not.
I mean, no question about it. There was,
Yeah.
it just because the camera could take bunch of, like, whatever it's called, the speed shooting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you pick whatever seems right, but it's
Right.
never really,
Right.
yeah.
So when I first started doing it, I wanted to make sure that they got a collection of each of the exercises, a nice shot. But by the time you get around to the second year and the person's ordering photos from you again, now I got to have something a little bit more. So at the beginning, I'm just satisfied that they got a great set and they see it and they love it. For the most part, I think, I don't know if this is a reference of quality, but you get reviews, right? And I have like 400 5-star or
Yes.
whatever the top review is. It's all top stars. So I'm going, well, people are happy, so keep doing what's right. But I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing what I think is the best thing, and you'll attract people that like what you do, right? If they don't like your photography, they won't order. But more and more, it just kept building, and then you're looking to try to provide something that's a little bit more, and that puts you in what makes it very intriguing. So we're sitting there, how can I get a shot here? And you have to look for something. So we call this the high risk shots, because if you're shooting the same pattern, you have to be in a specific position to do that. And everyone's going to want some of those photos. And I've never shot them before. I'm being very conservative and shooting the classical positions. So they have a collection because I want them to have the best photos they've ever had in their life of their dog. So if I've shot them a number of times, now I can be adventuresome and go for the money shot. For example, when Sports Illustrated used to have photographers, now they don't have them. Photography is kind of is a freelance business now, but it used to be a professional business. And they used to have 6 photographers at the Super Bowl, and 5 of them are positioned at key areas to get certain types of shots. And their job is to get that into the field and understand what to get. Then there's one person that's roving, and they're looking for the money shot. Mm-hmm. They're just looking for a shot that's going to be like the shot. So if I've shot someone before, then we might get a little bit risky and go into a position where you're at a position for other shots, but you're putting all your chips on getting this one shot. Now, with Jessica coming into the picture here, no pun intended, more recently, right? She wasn't there at the beginning, but as she came into it, it gives me a lot more latitude, because now if I go out and take a chance, she's got the backup on the other side.
Correct.
And honestly, sometimes we use her shot because she's on the better angle. She's opposite, right? So the judges can move into position. We're still dealing with electronic focus, so sometimes the focus will miss, even though you're tracking. It'll miss. So having that affords. And she can't go to all the events, but when she comes, it really allows us to get risky. I'll tell you where this was really, it stood out was the USCA Nationals here in Indiana.
Just the one
we just had.
Yeah.
And in the morning,
I know what.
Dark.
Yeah, I had to share those pictures on my page.
Oh my God! I'm saying, okay, so we have nothing, and I'm panicking. My palms are sweating. I go, it's too dark. There's too much noise in the photos. We have no light, which means you either have to slow your shutter down and you're going to blur images, or you're going to have an image that has electronic signal amplification of the sensor, and there's noise in it. There's colored splotches in it, and they're useless. They're terrible looking pictures. And if you try to fix it, they never look right. So I'm going, okay, what are we going to do with this? And then it was foggy. So milk fog. So you can't even see the other side of the field. Then the sun came up and it went right into the middle, and there's nothing. So now I'm saying, okay, I'm banking all of this on a whole collection of obedience of milk with a little shadow is not going to make people are going to be upset. So we had to get risky and go for it. And through those situations, some of your best photos come.
It's the same. It's amazing. Like there's just this mystical experience of watching IGP. Like you really nailed it. I mean, you really did.
The emotions behind that is complete anxiety. Like, oh my God, what the fuck are we going to do? Right. And then you get a great shot, some great shots that came out of that. And those are the moments. You prepare. You prepare for the event. You go and you go through your gear. You make sure all your gear's ready. Everything's clean. Everything's set. All your gear set up. You know your positions. You've got enough muscle memory to make it work. But it's still an adventure because things are going to get thrown at you that you can't plan for, and that's what turns it into the adventure. But we saw that weather. Sometime I remember in Buffalo, I think it was WDC 2017. It rained. It was freezing cold, and it rained for 4 days. And I mean, I'm talking torrential rain, and some amazing photos from there. Amazing photos. But you can't plan for that. Like you're out there, you have to
show the hardcore determination of what the sport is and what how crazy we are.
My nose was raw from being in the back of the water protection, the covering for the camera, and I was soaked to the bone and freezing. But I was sitting in the helpers tent with them, and they're all suffering, and you were brothers in arms suffering through this. And when you look back, it's what makes it really memorable and really enjoyable. It was fantastic. You never know. I did 2000. Actually, this most recent Denmark WSV was 2023. WSV 2022. WSV in Denmark, and they gave us they gave us one tiny little box to shoot out of. And so I'm traveling from the United States to Denmark to photograph a world championship. And this is on my own dime. So I travel, I'm a freelance photographer. So I'm thinking, how on earth am I going to shoot 5 days from the same position and get photos? And you just have to think, like, find a way to make it. These are the cards you're dealt with. So there's not that many photographers at a world championship because they have limited passes. So, but all of us are going to have the same shot. But actually, it's not that. You see different things, you're looking for different things, and then you get creative and you're shooting between moments that are actually a normal moment to shoot, but you're looking in between those moments and you're capturing things unfolding, and sometimes the story is between the lines.
Correct.
Right? So there's an exercise, and in between is where you see, and when you're looking at a photo, you don't know the moment that it's happening. So you might be able to get some of your best photos in those moments. And then gradually, over a day or so, the organizer saw we were struggling, and she knocked the sides off, and then we kind of went out, and the judges looked, and they were okay with it. And then we had full reign. We were walking all over. But at the beginning, well, this is what we're dealing with. Oh my God, somehow, some way.
Wow. Yeah, I would be frustrated, but I mean, I'm glad that they did let you. You know what is good now is that, I'm not sure, I think it was between the 2000 and, well, I don't know, somewhere years ago, but it was the digital came in, and the photographers would just come like almost into the field, and competitors were never. It ended up being a real test for some handlers and dogs, because you have these photographers laying down and jumping around like rabbits around the field, and then and some dogs and some. I mean, it really throws you off, when you're trying to focus and do the best you can. And this is something that comes out that you never even thought possible, that you got to prepare for something like this, right?
Right. So, I remember 2005 Nationals, USCA Nationals in Santa Clara, and I was entered. And during the retrieves over the obstacles, the photographer's walking around me shooting. And I turned over and I said, can you just stop? I don't want photos. Stop. My dog's distracted. He's like 5 feet from me. So
especially running on that side, kneeling. It just
what are
starts
you
to be
doing? Like, you got to be kidding me. So I think in the European events, you're not allowed to step 1 inch on the field. They would literally throw you out. And I don't mean that as just hyperbole. They will throw you out. So you have to stay back, and they're watching you. But in the U.S. championships, you're allowed on the field. But you have to respect that this is a person's biggest moment. I mean, they may have been working their whole. This may be the pinnacle of their sport, their hobby, or this could be professionally very critical to them. Regardless, you have no role, no place being part of the show. So
that's where you come, because you have both. You have the understanding of what it takes as far as effort, and appreciating that's that person and dog day to do the best they can, and they do want the picture, and then you have to make it work without that disturbance. And I mean, I think you're like the prime example of understanding that part of
Yeah.
the difficulty of the situation.
Yeah. Well, I think if you've been around, you should, for photography to work, you have to love the subject. And if you love a subject and you're passionate, you followed it, you'll know how to read. I went and watched a horse event, and I couldn't shoot a horse event. I'm not a horse person, but I'm watching that person, and they're in the ring, and they're clearly very, very knowledgeable about the horses. And I'd like to think I'm like that with the dog. So if the dog's ear moves even an iota, then I need to respect that. And then you've got to do things.
Yes.
I even have a setting on the camera where you can make your camera silent, right? So, or I'll give you the most extreme example. I was shooting Mondio Ring National Championship here in the United States, and there was a fellow that came in, and the dog, he was environmentally very aware. It was a serious dog, environmentally aware, and I could tell he was tense. And I made the decision that I would go and shoot the dog from outside the ring. Well, understand that in a Mondio, you're right in the middle of it. Sometimes the decoy will use you as an obstacle to separate you from him from the dog. I mean, they'll come straight at you, and you're diving out of the position, and they love it. It's a little chaotic, but it's kind of awesome in its way. But recognizing that this could influence this person's results, I stepped out and actually shot from outside. And there's been times when on the field where I'm stationary and I won't move. I'll turn the camera and I'll go passive, and we're just going to give up that shot because we can't risk it. We can't risk the dog targeting or focusing because they see whatever. It's just something different.
Yeah.
You're a fire hydrant. You're not normally there. What is this person? And in that moment when the dog breaks concentration, that could have a cascade effect. So we're just clear. We're clear apart. Now, there's other dogs that are seasoned dogs, and you can be standing on top of them and they don't care. And on those dogs, I know. I mean, call it luck or judgment. I kind of got a feel for it. So we'll choke in on the field, and you'll get shots that could be unbelievable because these dogs don't care.
Yeah.
Obviously, club level dogs, or I don't shoot clubs generally speaking, just at a matter of time now. But when I did, you'd have to be clearly way off the field and use a long lens. In 2017 in Holland at WSV. The blinds were within just feet of the sidelines. And so Frank Phillips had a dog named Cliff.
Yeah.
And that dog, it had just come in second at the FCI World Championship. And so he was like big news. All the Europeans were like really aware of the dogs. The judges are talking, it's a buzz. And there was maybe 4 or 5 accredited photographers at the event. And we're all close, but we're spread out. We are shooting different angles. And I know most of them, so you just sort of have this vibe, like non-verbal communication of photographers. Well, when Frank comes out, all of a sudden there's like 20 people on the side of this field, and we're elbowing and pushing to get a position, and we're all in blind 4. And we're feet from that blind, and there's 20 people pushing. I'm saying none of us are going to get the shot because it's like a mosh pit. And the dog comes running within, I'm exaggerating, but I felt like I reached out and touched the dog. It's 6-7 feet, but it feels like you could touch the dog. And he runs, he doesn't look at his cameras are wailing away, and the dog comes running around, and so that's the extreme, from one extreme to the other. I've seen where at Denmark last year, there was a German photographer hiding behind they'd use these soccer advertisement signs that are about 3 feet high.
Yes.
And then the photographers are supposed to stand behind it. And normally we shoot over it. Well, he was hiding behind the edge of it. And so it literally looked like a helper hiding hiding. So the dog ran and goes in and checks on the guy. And I'm like, that's a bad day for this dude, because I would probably put the camera down and walk away and go, I'm out. Like, because that's the worst that could happen, right? And some dogs are, could you imagine that some dogs are sensitive to it?
Oh, I will tell you direct personal experience. My very first world championship, 94 '94, bred in Belgium, the very first Belgian Shepherd World Championship. And up to that point, it was European. My female is in heat. So I'm going, there was, I don't know how many, but we are going at the end. And the guy that was taking videos, he was with the big tripod with the big VHS tape. I mean, we're talking 94, right?
Yeah,
Some mics with big fuzzy, I mean, it was and he's right by, I would say maybe 10 feet on the side. I can't remember which side of blind 6. So my dog, she goes straight at him, starts to bark at him. I call her back. I send her again. Van den Bosch was the judge. It was, he just, you know, at this point it was game over, but he's like just giving me a try. And she ended up 3 times going around. Now she's fixated about that guy with the tripod, with the camera. There is no coming
taking her
out.
off her game, right?
And especially being in heat and probably me being shaken, my first biggest ever experience. Somehow she made it to the blind and we continued the routine. But, you know, speaking of this kind of big boo-boo, and it wasn't like the guy wasn't even, he was just there for everybody. It wasn't, you know, but things can happen between the photographer and the person competing. For sure, there can be some dangerous kind of moments. What about the one in Italy? Like, what happened? Like, why is this even possible that they, from my understanding, not Italy, Slovenia this year, that they did not even allow other photographers. It was they had a one person, and it turned out to be a huge disappointment.
Fiasco, yeah.
I mean, huge disappointment. But so, why is that even allowed? Like on your end?
Apparently so. Apparently so. So I don't know all the details. So I won't. I can't speak to what I don't know. But I can tell you what is it's clearly obvious, and from the perspective of someone who spent a lot of time in photography, anyone that owns a leash can call themselves a dog trainer.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're a dog trainer.
Right.
People can call themselves a racer. Doesn't mean they're a racer. From my background in racing, right? You can go into a racing room. They all sound like they're world champions, but when the race is done, one guy is going to stand on a podium.
Yeah.
And then you have tiers of club level, national level, and international level. And photography is the same thing. If someone owns frying pans or knives, doesn't make them a chef. So people have a camera and they maybe have shot some things and they think they're and I'm going to just be blunt. And I'm sure this will probably, the audience will hear this, somebody will hear this and be offended, and it won't be the first time when an opinion gets me in trouble like that. But this is how I see it from my perspective. So I heard that they had selected one group, and that, I mean, for obvious reasons, there's a financial advantage for one. I mean, it's glaring. There's no other reason. They alluded to or tried to insinuate that they don't want dogs distracted. Well, there's been world championships forever, and it's the same handful of photographers that do these events, and we know what the heck's going on. And there's no record of anyone. That one example I'm talking about over the course of a number of years, half a decade. I can talk of one example where a dog came around blind, and honestly, the dog was not prepared, right? So it's the worst, but it's a world championship. You would never see that, right? It's a world championship level event. So, so they gave that as a straw man argument. But basically, they had a monopoly, and they gave it to a local photography business there. And they said you can check, and very arrogantly the promoter said you could check their references or their work. Well, I looked, and it shouldn't be hard to find their best work, right? Because your best work is what's going to come when you do a Google search, because that's the image that people have looked at. So it's not hard to, you Google any top photographer and you'll see some of their iconic work. It's what pops to the top. I couldn't find anything in dog sport, nothing.
Ouch.
I looked further. I didn't see any dog sport at all. So I know that Marielle from Matwork and Petra were interested in going. Marielle's from Denmark, from Holland, and Petra's from Czech Republic. They're very good photographers. I'm big fans of the work, and they had outright told them no. And then I had posted a comment on it, and the guy, the promoter, responded very, very negatively. So at the end of the day, they sent an unprepared group who absolutely, I watched video of what these people were doing, and photography is 90% physical. You have to move. You have to get down on the ground and roll. It's combat. I'm exhausted at the end of the day. I mean, you don't have an ounce of energy. And this person's sitting, shooting from one location. And then someone's holding an umbrella over them. I'm thinking, this can't possibly be. And then the second part of it is, the capture is a tiny percentage of the time commitment to shooting. You have to take the images back. For example, the average person I shoot, I'll shoot 1,000 to 1,400 photos of them. And then from that, I'm going to cull that down to 30 or 50 photos. And you're looking for a moment that is meaningful. And you have to go through. The rest of the stuff people don't want to see. You would never just, we call it a card dump, where you just dump your pictures and you.
Right.
And I'm understanding, like, this one English fellow had like 200 photos. Well, there's no way, I don't care who you are, that you can be the most legendary photographer. There's not 200 photos of a person. And so in there was absolute atrocious garbage. And naturally, there's going to be some good photos. The key here is anybody can get a few good photos. But it's being able to consistently go out and deliver a good package of photos and understand the sport. These people clearly didn't do it. How this happened, it should serve as a precedent. It could never happen again.
Right.
But unfortunately, I think there's probably reasons behind it that have merit. But the promoter of the event, the host of the event, gets to pick how many of the conditions of the event operate. Sometimes it's judges, sometimes it's field, sometimes photographers, vendors, or what have you. And they made the worst possible choice. There's a proven formula for this. 5-6 photographers that do a really nice job, and there's something to suit everybody. Not everyone will pick any given. One person doesn't dominate. You're going to get an allocation, and it divides up. It's not even, but most people will find something within those people, and it's based on experience and precedent. It's a world championship, so I kind of felt sick when I saw that, because if I were to earn a spot on a world championship team, I love dog training, but I'm not anywhere. You've forgotten more about dog training than I'm ever going to know. So if I were to make it on a world championship team, I would want to have, it's like a wedding. I would want to have wedding photo level stuff.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's my take on it. I think it was a travesty that it happened. It's just pictures. It's not. It's this person's a life experience that is huge, an accomplishment that's massive, and they have nothing. Their photos, they have 2 or 3 good photos. It was a big disappointment. But fortunately, that was an exception.
Yeah, how does it typically work when you, like, let's say if you pick up, you don't get invitation, I'm assuming you have to show interest, and then there is certain number of photographers that, or how does that work in the big events, or they're all different?
It depends, yeah. So the common theme is generally you reach out and you say, I would like to be considered as to have press credentials. And some of them will charge you, actually, like a vendor, so that you can go. Others don't. And then generally, you need to, if you're doing it for the first time, they would want to know who are you representing. Either you're representing a country, which is some events require that you're supporting a country, or you're representing a magazine. It's one of the two. but I can't say it's the same across the board. And then you pay your own dime to get over there, and I support the photography through sales of photos. For me, it's not a viable program. But I get content that's it makes it worthwhile. But yeah, there's I'd say four photographers that do this on a serious level, that go with the commitment. And when I say that, they go with the commitment of, they know what they're looking at, they love the sport, have many years in the sport, are passionate about the sport, they understand the sport, they understand how to photograph, and then they know how to deliver images, and they know how to do the business aspect of it, so that you fulfill you respect the craft, so people come away feeling. And I mean, there's a handful of people that I can speak to. And that's it. And to get to, for example, the first time I went, I had been shooting in the U.S. for a few years, and just natural growth. I wanted to go to the next level and said, well, I'd like to shoot in Europe. I think that's the next step. I've shot national championships for a while now, and it just seemed natural. The next step is we got to go to the World Championships. So I reached out, and they had seen my work. So somehow they knew. It wasn't a question of being qualified. They saw it and they go, oh yeah, we'd love to see you, blah, blah, blah. It was no charge. I was able to go. And I sold 14 people photos. I was just like crushed because nobody knew me. Like I'm there, but they didn't, or they knew me, but they had already established relationships with people there. And many of the people at World Championships are the same people, because it's hard to get to that level, and the people that do it know how to push that button. They're good at repeating and getting in there. So they have relationships with established people, and it's a relationships like anything. I think relationships count for a lot, but I'm still glad I went. So I ended up spending, to go to Europe and to pay for hotel and rental cars and to all this dog care. And it was, it's a $5,000-$6,000 endeavor to go to a world championship, right? A minimum. And I sold maybe, 14 people photos. It was really upside down, but I ended up with a huge collection of iconic photos that came from that event. I think I have something on my wall behind me here. On one side over here is Jan van Maren.
Yes, that was one of the most attractive, from helper perspective, taking shots of those tall, leggy Dutch guys, right?
Yeah, and Nicky Cooper's, and then
for sure,
it was amazing. So I'm glad I did it, because sometimes you just have to jump in. And it doesn't necessarily make sense at the moment, but it will make sense over time. And I did. And then after that, it became much easier, because people started to reach out and say, hey, did you get any photos of this? And then still a little bit hesitant. They're like, can I see the photos? And the reality is, if I shoot 1,500 photos, I can't just go process and edit and hope that somebody gets them. I need to know somebody's interested. But then it's a catch-22. The next year was much easier, and then now it's something that, the bottom line is, there's no promises. You just have to have blind faith, go for it, and we did, and it turned out pretty good.
I see my picture in the back and behind you.
Let me turn the light on. It's gotten dark here now.
Because I will show you. I have it. I have it huge on my wall right here.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's beautiful. Yes.
I have few of pretty much
that's
all
floating.
of my dogs, that I have to have them. It's like I mean, it's a crazy picture because of the interaction, but then we're really 6 legs and there is no one leg touching the ground.
Sometimes there's energy in a photo, and the movement, the positioning of the body, and there's energy, and you can create that sometimes even in a stationary subject, if you catch the right angles on the person and their head, and there's energy. But that photo, that was just the timing of that, And again, this is why you shoot a lot of photos because I couldn't foresee when you were going to be airborne.
Of
You're
course.
planning, well, I see the steps and you want to try to capture the gait when the gaits match up between the handler and the feet. And you have to shoot a ton of shots to try to catch that moment because the dog, depending on the speed, they might be in different gaits, but eventually they'll hit that one moment where the two overlap. And that was a moment where not
The
just the
same.
gate overlapped, but you will also happen to be airborne. Uh, and it's a super creamy background, isn't it? Yes, I love that
Right,
shot.
right.
Really like the shot. Yeah, I got
Yeah.
another shot up here that I loved of Josh Marco's dog, Scully, which was a maniac dog. I think it was
Oh,
AWDF,
yes.
but the dog was reckless. He was a wrecking ball,
Yes.
and he came flying into the
It's like,
dumbbell
I'm
and
going to
just
take
like,
that dumbbell somehow.
oh my God. So yeah, I honestly I don't have all. Every time I see photos, I want to print them, but
Well,
the show just keeps moving forward.
what you really should do is you have to start making some cool calendars. And even if I don't know now with the whole digital, even if they're on a digital format as a wallpaper of some sort of calendars, like I know I have a big screen where my Google calendar is on the wall, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's crying for something that Brian
yeah.
puts together.
Well, this winter I don't want to let cats out of the bag, but we're looking to expand our projects from what we've been doing. So
Very cool.
there'll be some things coming down the pipeline. So diversifying the channels, the platforms that we've got into YouTube is one of the plans,
Oh wow.
and then having some form of ebook where you can have a reference for photos. With the stories because a good part of this is telling the narratives of what's happening in writing, which was an accidental discovery that sort of evolved into this program. So I'm a photographer, but telling the stories and getting to meet people and the behind the scenes and creating showcasing or highlighting the beauty or the story or the passion or the joy or sometimes the just the pain.
Exactly. I think we
It
are
can be
all
about,
very interested in that unspoken, untold story because all of us know that it's there.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, this is definitely something waiting to be. I'll tell you, like, some of my favorite pictures. I mean, of course, this is a big deal for me, but the picture that doesn't make sense to put on the wall is a little more special picture from the same, no, from the FCI. So with Kenya, I won all the championships in the country, and then I won the 2 world championships. And after I won the world championship, and I walk out and I jump around like a maniac, of course. And there is this moment where it's just me and my dog outside the stadium in a park on a bench, and there is nobody around. And he's laying in my feet, and I am just having this look like a little bit of disbelief, a little bit of exhaustion, just like a looking somewhere deep in the nothingness,
that's awesome.
Like,
That's
what
awesome.
the hell? Like, what kind of year and how did those stars line? I mean, it's just like
How
this
did this happen?
unreal
Yeah.
moment of, okay, I mean, definitely it's not a fluke. Like, I just became 2-time world champion. And it was, and here I am sitting by myself on the bench with the dog, and a friend of mine took the picture, and it wasn't, but this kind of picture is what you're talking about, right? Like,
Yeah. Sometimes the subject, you don't have to be great. If you were able to capture that moment, and you were in the right place at the right time, yeah, nothing tops that, right? Nothing tops that. There's only so many of those moments that exist. The rest of the photography is creating beauty out of seemingly normal moments and making it memorable. But when you capture a moment like that, I remember one photo of you I can't remember the year. It might be 2016 or 15. You won AWDF, and it was down to
Oh, I
the
know. Me and Mario. That was
you and
a
Mario.
yes.
He's leading. You have to get a score, and you got 1 point more than him. And you
Yes.
there was this moment you heard the number, and it was like there was a delay. It was like an audio delay, and you heard it, and then all of a sudden you just jumped in the air, and your dog is looking up at you like, "What the hell?" And you're like 3 feet in the air, and the judge, I think it was Randall
It was
Hoadley, was
Randall. That's right.
he's reaching over to shake your hand, but you're way up in the
Yes.
sky. These classic moments, like you can't plan them. And then you went over the next photo. You went over and you hugged Mario, and you guys gave each other a huge
Yeah,
hug.
that was the
It
that
was
was
very
the
classy, very
priceless
classy.
that was the priceless photo because I mean Mario, I know how he's waiting, and I know both of our emotions at the
Yeah,
moment. You know, it's
yeah,
like
yeah. He was
I
happy
knew
for you.
caught
This was
it.
the
I
beautiful
knew
thing.
caught
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, but that's the thing is follow after the moment because sometimes after the moment is when the best photo happens. So there's the obvious moment, but what happens afterwards, the expression or the moments, things that can happen, and so I just kept my camera trained on you as you were walking over. I didn't know what you were doing because I'm on the side of the field. I can't see he's over there, and I followed you, and I go, something's going on, and then you caught that moment, and it was sometimes you see something and your heart swells. You just feel this humanity. This is beautiful. Mario lost the championship to you, but he's happy for you,
Right.
right? But this is even a bigger thing than anything else. Is that the camaraderie of the sportsmanship was there. A great moment. That was an epic moment. I was glad to be there.
Those are
Part of
no,
that.
but this is what you are so good of capturing over and over again. And as you said, probably now that you guys work together with Jessica, you have a little more freedom to take some chances because you know that it must be a good feeling that the two
She's
of you
great.
can do, right?
Oh yeah, and she's great. So we met in 2016 at the Southwestern Regional Championship. I was shooting it, and she was there with a kit camera, and she's fiddling with it. She came up and asked some questions about how to do the settings, and she's got this. She's got this smile. She's just got this super good energy, and she keeps coming over and asking questions. And you see someone, and then you see someone. So then I saw Jessica, and but she didn't know squat about working that camera, but she was interested. Here's a super athletic type gal, super nice energy, just sweet as can be, and she's super into dogs, and she's wanting to learn about photography. So we end up talking and becoming somewhat like acquaintances, and then over time, eventually, I asked her to shoot as an assistant when I was doing a private shoot for somebody in Northern California. I was doing a portrait session for a person and
So it
their
wasn't even a dog thing.
no, when actually there was one before. She had wanted to have her photo taken as a portrait, and I got a portrait background, so I did a portrait session with her. I did a really nice, beautiful portrait
Oh, I
session
know.
for her.
I've seen some of those for sure.
Yeah, so that was I had a hair and makeup artist, and we did a studio shoot, and we did and it she was treated like a model, and Jessica has a different side to her she didn't know, so she could be glam, and she went full glam for this one, and we had costumes, and we made some really great photos for her, and then after that I invited her to be an assistant, and then I think it got romantic after that, and so she moved out to Houston, and she would come to the event, and immediately the first event I invited her to was the World Championships in Netherlands in 2016, and she sat up in the audience, and she snuck down to get on the field. She's adventurous, right? So she's not shy.
Yes.
And she's sweet, but she's not shy. So she didn't want to be. She's not a spectator. She's a doer. So I'm down on the field and I'm shooting, and I'm sort of finding my way and my place on this World Championship stage, around people that have been doing this for a long time. I'm the unknown American, And I'm coming with these knee pad. My style is totally different than what the way these guys go about their stuff. They're looking at me, it's sloughing like, who is this guy? And look at what he's doing. And then one of them sees the pictures the next day. He's like, those are pretty good. Right. So it's all of a sudden I got a little bit of respect. And then Jessica wanted to come down. So she snuck down and she came over and sat in the dugout over there. Usually we're in a soccer stadium, unless we're in Eastern Europe where, you're out in fields. But like in Greece, Greece was a stadium. Usually you're in a soccer stadium and there's a dugout. Soccer stadiums have like a baseball dugout. And the photographers are allowed to go in one of them, and then the judges are in the other one. It's sort of like how it's done. And you put your bags down in the photographer one. And so she snuck in, and these events are highly structured and rigid. So it's not like you can everything is controlled. And so the guy comes by and he says, "Where's your armband?" Oops. And he starts screaming and he goes, "Well, I'm going to throw you out and you need to go," and just yelling at the top of his lungs. And I'm going, oh my God. We flew from the United States. I'm here on day 2, and we're going to get kicked out. And so she's getting her stuff, and then so she had to leave. But that was a little bit of adventure at the beginning. After that, she wanted to shoot, so she would take the camera and do video because she's done video for a long time. Right. She made some beautiful videos that just shocked me how good they were. So she took one of my cameras, put it on a tripod, and so since she's there, she wanted to be active and participate. And so she did clips and would turn them into these nice video clips, just relaxed, no rush, 2-3 months later. And the first one I saw, like I'm an emotional guy, I'm passionate. I saw it, I start crying. I go, it's fucking beautiful. Like that is amazing. So she did a few of them. And then I can't remember where it happened, but I said, instead of doing video, why don't you go to the other side of the field and I'll set you up with a camera and you shoot the opposite side of the field. And so her photography skills needed a little bit of development, but what she has beyond no training needed, she has an eye. Mm-hmm. So she knows how to see. You can see that in the video. She's noticing like the little tiny tail movements, the pause, the nose twitches, the glistening in the eye. She sees beauty. She definitely has a good eye. So her skills you just have to do muscle memory, because it's one thing. You can go out, I keep saying this, you can go out, a photographer can go out and make a great shot. But when you're out there at 7 a.m. and now it's 90 degrees, 95 degrees, or it's freezing temperatures, and now it's 4 p.m, and you have no break. It's obedience, protection, obedience, protection. There's no time that you get to go sit down. You're just going. You get so tired that it's hard to be creative, and you start to either relax or make mistakes. And so muscle memory kicks in. You've got to just be doing things by default and not have to think about it, because you're mentally spent. And so it's hard. And she's gotten very good. This last event, she's amazing. So she's finding the angles and on setup on the camera, I still will help a little bit. But she knows the vernacular. I'll call out settings and she'll know exactly what I'm saying. 2000, 2.8, 1600. She knows what this means right. Or I'll tell her what focal point to use, or I mean, all the.
Do you guys talk to each other like on the phone or something when you're across the field?
No,
everybody's in their own zone.
Yeah. So the key areas that I need her with me is the send out. That was absolutely critical, and then sometimes on the jumps. So on obedience. Now on protection, she goes to the other side of the field, and because when you're that far off center, the settings don't change. You're shooting the same thing, because once you get a certain distance, it's a standard setting. But when you're close, there's a lot of movement, a lot of changes depending on circumstances. Like when we had the fog that morning, I had to guide her through it. But the reason we need 2, it's ideal to have 2, is because on the send out, the judge is often standing on your side of the handler, and they will be right where you can never tell where the dog's going to send out, where the judge is going to stand. It's random. And so you'll often get the judge standing in the line of view of the camera. Mm-hmm. So if you have 2 angles, one of you will get it. There's a preferred angle, but a angle is better than no angle. So, and this is particularly true at FMBB, where in the finals you have four judges on the
Right.
field, or AWMA, where you got two judges on the field, and they're standing on the same side. So they can create a de facto wall for you. And the jump is the other very challenging one. So there's a safe way to get a jump picture, and then there's the high risk, but money shot on a jump. The safe way, the further back you get, the easier it is, and it's a sure shot. When you get close, it's really risky that you might miss it. The dog might go out of frame. You might not get the right focal point. So we try to have both: have a safety and insurance shot, and then go for the money shot. And so she gets that, and she knows how to position herself and help with that. And as a product of that, I think the production value has gone up dramatically with her, and she likes it. She likes being involved. Now the editing, I still do. Editing is a huge part of this, and I still do that. She's good at the video editing. She's
No, I mean,
she's
it's
natural.
perfect. I mean, you guys get to train dogs together and get to take
Yeah.
shots together. I mean,
I'm riding
it's
motorcycles
amazing.
together.
Yeah, it's
Travel
amazing.
together. Yeah, yeah.
Let me
We shoot
ask you
guns
this.
together.
When you're shooting and you have somebody that you actually care, somebody that you know, somebody that you're rooting for, somebody that, maybe, how do you, are you able to just separate and focus on pictures, or are you paying attention to the routine
Ah,
as well when it matters to you?
Yeah,
How do you
that's
split these two?
that's a good question. So the answer is disappointing in this, because when you're shooting, you don't actually get to see what's happening on the field. As crazy as that sounds, we're looking through an 18 millimeter hole, and you're watching through now we use digital viewfinders, but the older cameras had an optical, which was a little bit better. Now it's digital. So there's a separation. It's artificial. It's like virtual. And there's so many factors that you're trying to align. So I'm trying to make sure I got framing. I want to have as long a lens as possible to fill the frame, which takes a lot of your attention to make sure that you don't cut off the head and the feet, because you've ruined the photo when you've done that, and your horizons are straight. And then you're panning to be smooth, and then you're looking at your settings, and then I'm looking for the moment when to shoot, because you can't just sit there and shoot unlimited photos. You'll never get through the work, and you'll burn up all your memory.
Right.
And when I say, it's not that I'm being miserly on memory, at the last event, we used 4 terabytes at the USCA Nationals. It's
Wow.
an insane amount
Wow.
of data. It's mind-boggling. So, and because these cameras shoot so fast, they shoot 20 frames a second, and they're big files. They're 45 megapixel files. So it's a
Well,
massive
that's
amount
why
of
I
data.
can't have it that big on my room.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can actually make that with a much smaller. Yeah, there's more data there than we need, but we shoot in RAW because I want to be able to go in after the fact, and editing means we still dodge and burn, right? I have highlights. I'm although we don't manipulate the photo, these are real photos. They're not created, right? Angles and things aren't fixed, but I straighten photos, and I definitely adjust color and highlights and shadows, and we shoot RAW to do that. RAW means instead of a JPEG, which comes out of camera baked, it's the raw data off the sensor, and it's a big,
And that's a
heavy.
huge file, right?
It's a huge file, and then I take it into a processing software, and then once I've taken the selection, I individually edit each photo. It's a slow process, but to me it's a higher quality photo. The face and the details and things of that sort. So back to your question, I'm excited for the person out there, but I generally don't get to see it. So I see it, but sometimes I get to see something nobody gets to see, right? Like on the long bites and escapes, and you get to see. You'll see me running over, and I'll show something to someone afterwards. I generally don't like to show it to helpers. I used to show it to helpers, but I think differently now. I have a new opinion of that. It used to be, hey, look, you did it right. It wasn't your fault type of thing. wanting to be helpful.
Yeah.
But actually, you're throwing them off.
Interesting. Correct.
Now I think that they don't need to see this, because now they're thinking outside their channel, and I don't think it's the right thing to do. So I don't do it unless there is a controversy, and we need to know what's happened. It happened in Italy, where a dog had an unfortunate thing happen, and the helper felt was crushed, and the judges asked to see the photos and was able to show that, look, the helper, it didn't cause this. But I generally don't show it. I remember one time a guy was having trouble, and some dogs were coming off, and he wanted to see the photos, but the more he saw it, the more it was locking him up.
Gets in his head,
and
right.
And I'm realizing, shit, I never should. So the rule of thumb, and at the end of the day, whether or not it would have been the same had I not shown it, whether it was just a stress of, hey, I've had some dogs come off. Now my opinion is I don't show it. Even the good stuff, I don't want to show it, because they have to be in a mode and consistent, and they're doing their muscle memory repetitions, what they prepared and trained for, just as I am, and breaking them out of that zone, I don't think is helpful.
Yeah, and
anyway,
if they need
that's
to
my
adjust,
opinion.
they need to adjust in the moment on their own, really, when they're on that level, right? If it's an instructional helper camp or something, then it's a different story. Yeah. But yeah, that's very true. You know, I'll tell you, every time I have filmed or taken picture of somebody that I care, it never turns well. It's like there is the long bite, and here is Ivan filming the clouds or the grass and swearing, and it always turns into a big mess. And then I'm hoping that Brian has it.
So where I take a lot of joy now is, obviously, I put a lot of, you asked at the beginning, am I nervous? And when we get to the event, it's an adventure. It's sort of like the starting line of the race. You've done all your preparation, you've trained, you have your mind in the right mode, but now you have to deliver. You go out, you got to take the shot. And so we've got to get the key shots. That's important. And it's expected. If we miss that, I'm disappointed, right? That can happen, and I'm really disappointed if I miss one of the key shots. But now we push to try to get, and you'll see more and more of like the images that I share. I don't know what the percentages are, but a high percentage of them are portraits. It's the person interacting with the dog, or the person or the dog, and just the essence of that person. And so I'll be watching them, and this is where I've said it's come full circle, right? I had talked about portraiture was an important thing that I had a lot of joy in, but somehow, you know, I look at photography as an art form, and you have a voice, you want your work to have a signature. Like, I can see my photo, I know my photo. I'll know a photo I've shot, I don't know how long ago. I know it. I could also recognize a photo that Petra has taken, to a lesser degree, but very similarly. Oh no, I know that photo. I know Marielle's photos.
That's so cool.
A little bit less, but she has a great eye. They're good photographers, and they have a voice. They see things a certain way. The three of us will shoot something, and we'll see different things, and they're all good. It's just a different nuance. So do
you think you have to be on your level to recognize that, or people recognize it but kind of subconsciously and don't really make sense of it the way you would?
Well, I think it's sort of like,
because I'm the same. Like I can see 300 dogs healing for 5 steps, and I can separate 300 dogs healing for 5 steps.
And be able to tell a lot of reasons why you feel a certain way about each one. It's the same. If you study something at that level of nuance, so you're talking about framing, you're talking about focus, you're talking about angle, you're talking about what they selected, then you're talking about how you treat that photo once it's captured. What do you do with the photo in terms of the color and the grading, how it's edited? There's a massive difference between Petra and my photo. Even if we took the same photo and we both handled those photos, I could tell you which one was handled by who.
That's so
uh,
beautiful, right?
instantly. I mean, it's glaring. But if you aren't aware of a straight horizon, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't be able to do that, right? So it's like a coffee connoisseur or a wine connoisseur or a dog trainer. You can tell a dog that is happy in its work and one that's under pressure, and someone that's a casual observer just thinks, hey, that dog's healing perfectly.
Yeah.
There's a world of difference between these two dogs. You know, one actually might even be technically in a better position, but it's not a good picture. And the other one's a little looser, but it's a much nicer picture,
Correct.
right? So photography is for sure the same in my mind in terms of
That's
being able to read
beautiful.
the picture.
You have to, like, you know how whatever canine and sports and any of the movements now that are, trying to show the better side of what we do. And I think you guys with those cameras are, in my opinion, starting to be very, very important in how, I want to say how we present, but how you present to the people and general public, whatever, what we do, and kind of break that if possible. Like, I really hope that we can break that. This is a where you're teaching a dog to bite a man, and like the last thing that's happening in Austria now. It's such a shame, and it keeps going and it keeps getting momentum, and I feel that pictures tell the story, the real story, and somehow they need to, I don't know, like, hopefully whatever your projects are, that's somewhere included, because
Oh, for sure. That's a big driver of this. Yeah.
okay.
So Canine and Sports came into so for those that don't know, Canine and Sports is an advocacy group of a few people in Germany, but mostly but supported by, where they initiated a program. Florian Nobel and Patricia Persson organized a group to support and protect the long-term health of working dogs, protect the sport, the private training of sport dogs, and to try to safeguard against attacks from outside parties that believe that dogs should not be trained for bite work or be trained using any corrective measures, corrective training techniques. So it's sort of balancing out what is already a very entrenched group on one side that wants to ban working dogs, police dogs in general, and offering insight into why there's a benefit and the good that comes out of it. So they
Correct.
reached out. They reached out to a number of people that are experts or well known or respected within fields. That's pretty broad. A broad spectrum, from military and police people to government people to dog trainers, high-level dog trainers, influencers that are dog trainers like yourself, judges, and then some people that have a big platform. And we were asked, Jessica and I were asked to be ambassadors on that. But I support it 100%. They asked, and I said, absolutely, I support it. But there's different motivations for the people that want to do that. Each having really good merit. Some wanting to protect breeding programs. One wanting to bring closer together the professional working canine and military working dogs and the private breeding programs, and then others looking to protect the sport of IGP or dog sport, not necessarily IGP, but dog sport in general. And the common thread is all of us don't take for granted that tomorrow that you'll be able to go out and train a dog for IGP and not have it be something that's illegal, and that you should be able to use a balanced training where you're able to have corrective tools to correct a dog. So going back, I don't know when it began, but I post photos. I'm a photographer. And then over time, I'd be sitting is the creative process, and I didn't have a mission to get to what we're doing now. It sort of evolved as it became clear that this is a good direction forward. This is a nice direction forward. So it started with I wanted to be back involved with dogs, and I love photography. I love photography. I'm searching for my voice to express this art, where I feel that my work will be something that's meaningful or good. And I wasn't getting satisfied in portrait work, so I said, let me go shoot some dogs, and it started to be pretty good, and it worked out. People appreciated it. I liked it, and I experimented. I shot some wedding work. I shot some show dog stuff, and you sample, and I found my vibe is within working dog. I did some Mondio. I loved it. I did a lot of IGP, and as I'm getting this collection of work, I'd be sitting editing, which is 4/5 of the work. You photograph for 3 days, but then 3 days of photography will take me 3 weeks to edit, or a month. And I work in the automotive field. I'm a region manager for AutoNation. So I used to be a service manager, and then became a region manager.
Oh, so
and I oversee.
That's when I get those glimpses of the big Zoom meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's my job. Is AutoNation is a public dealership group. We have a variety of brands, and I work for the region. There's a district. I cover 9 brands in the Houston area, covering about 130 mile radius area, and Houston's a huge city. It's the 4th biggest city, so it's a fairly big operation, relatively speaking, and that's my main job. So I do that in the morning till night, and it's fully engulfs my time. Mm-hmm. On the weekends, when there's an event, I'll travel. So I have to balance this, because I can't really let this overlap into the week, except for my time off. At night, I'll edit. So I'll spend time when I get home, and I'll go in and I'll start processing photos. And the editing process is you sit down. The process of editing is you sit down, and I'll take a collection of 1,000, 1,500 photos, break them down, and I'll start going through and adjusting the photos so that they pop, so they look, each photo, once I release it out into the interwebs, that I'm proud of it. Otherwise, I can't let it go. That photo has to be something that I will be proud of, right? Now, occasionally I'll let a photo go because it's informative, it's instructive to the handler. They need to know what happened. And I hope the photo doesn't go, I don't control it once I lose it. It goes out there. But there'll be things that happen on a field. They need to know what happened, because what they think happened often is way different than what actually happened.
Oh, that's I would appreciate that so much. 100%.
I'll do a sequence where I'll show 5 shots of a specific moment of something happening, and they'll go, oh my gosh, I get it. Like, it might be the dog trying to go over an A-frame. And those are never intended to ever go on the internet, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't have a way of separating, and I hope people understand when they see that. And the others are the photos that are a collection of photos, and then I'm looking for a handful of photos that are just iconic moments that show the joy and the glory of this. So I'll be looking at photos, and I'm a romantic, passionate guy. It's just, I'm
that's right.
It's just my nature. So I'll be looking at photos, and I'll see something, and I'll just pause. And your mind, because you're in a zone, it's like when I motorcycle ride on long rides, you'll go and your brain will go into these far thoughts that you would never have in your normal busy, in your state of distraction, where you're actively doing things. Your mind isn't peaceful to think.
The rat race, yes.
Yeah, you have to go off into a calm sort of zen. And when I'm editing, I've got some nice music. I'm just in it, and I have no distractions. I don't want no interruptions, and I'll see moments, and I'll go, that's a really amazing moment. And I'll say, why does it make me feel that? And when you see the storylines, often there's a narrative that's written around. This is separate from bios. Bios, when we write the bios, I'll speak to that in a moment, where we highlight a profile on a person is a different thing. But we'll write.
You have a gift on that too. We definitely need to talk about that.
But we'll speak about that in just a moment. So on these, I'll go and I'll write sometimes I'll make an association with something. I remember there was one, I saw this dog going around a corner and he's doing the blinds at an insane lean angle. And I wrote about the technicalities of on a road race course, the limit of traction beyond which you crash, the slip angle, and I explained the maximum lean angle, what that means, and just kind of it was something out of road racing, and then I applied it to the dog thing, and to me it made perfect sense. I go, I don't know if people are going to get that, but let's do it, and that's how these little stories. It's in the calm of an evening, relaxing music. I'm in a zone doing something I love, and I'll see a photo that goes, I'll go out, and I can't force it. And when I get that, I'll say, because we have 6 dogs. There's a lot of crazy activity in this household. I'll say, Jessica, I'm having a creative moment. No interruptions, please. Because I need to get it. I don't know where this moment is. I don't know where it's taking me, but I see something here. And then we'll write that. And then I'll sit with it for a bit. And then I'll edit it. And then I'll have her come and read it and say, does this make sense? And then we'll post it. So that's where that comes from. And the editing process. I forgot how we started on this topic, but it happens at night, and that's where these stories come from. It's coming back to canine in sports.
Yes.
So gradually, as I'm posting these pictures, I'm getting comments and questions, and I'm realizing that we've broken through speaking to those that are already converted, and we're reaching people outside the sport at a very high degree, right? So on a big event, we'll have more than 1 million views, right? And over the course of 30 days.
Yeah,
it's really
very
big,
true.
right? I think I've shared that with you. It's insane. So I'm not just blowing smoke. You've seen the numbers. It's an insane number of people that will see this. And then more importantly, we'll have 350,000 engagements, which is like these people are actually, they're sharing it, they're commenting it, they're taking time and telling you they like it. And as you pull the layers back, lots of these people know nothing about the sport. And we've caught them. Somehow the message has got outside of our normal people. And I started to see that. And then there was this awesome responsibility that when you post a helper coming down with a stick, I had a friend that I'd known for a long time, and she knew I trained dogs. And she had seen one of the pictures, and she says that the scary guy with the stick, why is he hitting the dog? And even though she knew I trained, and she knows I'm an animal lover, right? It's not like I would never.
Correct.
The last thing I would ever do, I rescue dogs, is hurt a dog. And to have someone like that say this, I was like, wow. Okay, so now it's a responsibility to explain what's going on, and then to start to show the soft side of the sport. The action is cool, right? There's the young teenagers want to see the teeth and all that cool stuff. Oh, I don't get me wrong, I love to see it too, right? But we've got to be able to show the soft side of the sport, and that's where those narratives started to come in. And love the dog first. You'll see that over and over, and relationship and harmony, and then the passion for their dog. And I'll make sure that story levels out with the action that you're seeing. And then when we got to canine in sports, we've been doing. So I write those stuff. That's the writing is something I enjoy, and it's expressive, and I get a lot of satisfaction from just percolating a thought and getting it matched up with the picture. It's sort of like the pairing for me is I enjoy that. And so we've been doing that. When canine sports happened, it's like, well, this is perfect. Our place in this, our role is to show the beauty and the wholesomeness of dogs interacting in a way that they're finding the dog has meaning. It's just not an accessory. We're not buying a dog because it's got a red coat. We're not buying a dog because I like the way that it looks. We're buying the dog so I can share in an activity and engage that dog and its instincts in a way that dog lives a life where it thrives. And on a protection type dog, it's balanced with stable nerves and and temperament so that it's an exemplary utility dog, right? And that message is what we've been gradually going towards because it's not obvious. And when
True.
they reached out, when K9 in Sports reached out and said, well, yeah, I'm not sure how I can help because I can't talk to you about military involvement and the degree of how science plays in with training where you have professor level understanding of this. I can't help there. But what I can help is the visual and the emotive expressions of what's happening, being able to express that in a way that resonates with normal folk. And we can do that. We can do that. And when someone sees that, when they see this messaging coming across, gradually it will shape the perception of what we do. I mean, I've been doing the sport of IGP dog sport since for 20 some odd years. And at the beginning, when I would tell people, they would look at pictures and think, "Oh, you teach attached dogs, like attack dogs." I'm like, "No, no, no," but it was perceived as
For sure.
behind the shed, sort of barbaric. And granted, some of the training was fairly harsh, and it's become much better now. By and large, I'd say the training is as good as anything in any type of dog sport or dog activity.
And
But
it's evolving daily. I mean, we're getting better by the hour.
so that's the canine in sports movement is I'm honored to be part of it. I'm not sure where our role is, but I know that we've only just now tapped into an awareness of how we can communicate this message in a cohesive, coherent, and somewhat integrated way.
It's a little frustrating to me. I mean, what is frustrating is the reality that we had to get together and try to defend what we do because the big organizations that have the money, that have the possibilities to do better job of educating public and defending, and they, for whatever the reason is, they don't want to step up and take that risk to do it. So like we really, like, I feel that we just got neglected. It's like, okay, well, if everybody wants to cancel you out, then that's what's going to happen. We're not going to do anything about it. And that's really how Canine Sports and bunch of other organizations came up as a urgency to try to respond in some way to show that we're not this barbaric people, and we love our dogs, and the dogs have fun, and they live with kids and other dogs and go to coffee shops, and they're not the dogs that the bite incidents happen. They're not the dogs that end up in a shelter. They're not the dogs that everybody wants to portray them as, and it's a strange war that we're in, but it's a war, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. I think the organizations have had their unique individual interests. They've been pursuing their interests, and rightfully so, but noting small differences between organizations, so it becomes factions that sometimes exert energy against one another or to balance or put each other in check. And we have so much more in common than we have differences, but it's a little bit of a struggle because there's I mean, dog people are passionate, and these nuanced differences, the more similar we are, sometimes the more we pick apart the little differences, right? And while this is happening, there's a pack of wolves at the door, and they're wanting to take us out. And we're bleeding this energy on and I mean this absolutely respectfully because we're all part of this, but we have missed, and it's late in the game, a growing swell of people that have a very small percent. And I'm not an expert in this, and I hope it doesn't come across as though I'm speaking like I'm super knowledgeable in this, but it appears to me we have a small faction within the public that is very loud, and through a very aggressive tactics are swaying the direction of governance.
They really are
And
persuading, and not just the governments. They're convincing people. I mean, I like they're some people are so confused to the point that IGP is not much different than some underground pit bull ring.
it's crazy. It's
That's
crazy.
really where we are.
It's crazy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's mind-boggling, but I think with Florian and Patricia's movement with this canine in sport and the people that are involved, the good that can come from this is that highly people that have when I say people that have some influence, people that have a platform, that have following, that can extend out and create a balanced message. We have a great message. We don't have to invent anything. We just need to articulate in a way that people can follow and understand. And a sensible person who comes, like a person seeing a dog sport for the first time, it's hard to understand it. No more different than if you were to go to a American football game and try to watch it. You have no clue. I went to a hockey game the first time I watched it. I had no idea. Over time, you grow to appreciate it, and then you love it, right? Somebody has to explain what's happening. And so as we do this, it helps balance this out. And then I think you had spoken, there's different evolution of this fight at any given moment. Austria, where they wanted to ban bite sports altogether, is at the extreme level. Then you have the smaller degrees in some of the European countries where you can't use a prong collar, a basic training tool that's super effective. Dogs get it. It makes sense. It makes training so much easier. It makes it less stressful for a dog because it has a moment of understanding, and it's over, and we're able to move forward, as opposed to prolonging the agony of not knowing what the heck's going on, and it's getting stressed, and there's anxiety, and this thing starts to build quickly. You can just fix it, and we move on, and the dog gets to a really good place really fast, and it gets proud. And you watch a dog that's been well trained, that understands, and its chest is up, its ears are up, its tail's up. It loves it. It's running around the helper, or it's running around with the dumbbell, and it loves what it's done. And it's because it's been given clear guidelines and some training techniques that make sense. So here in the U.S., fortunately, we're probably in the best position of all of it. And I don't take that for granted. And every time I post a picture or I post a comment, I want to be mindful that I need to be cognizant of, could this be twisted? And am I, but I still need to be authentic. I need to be able to show a threat on a dog, and a dog responding courageously and with vigor and being energetic and thriving. That's a good photo. I don't want to apologize for that. I need to be able to show it, but I need to explain it. I need to be able to explain it. And I often, I've reached out to you, and I've reached out to some of the other top trainers that I appreciate, and asked questions to make sure that what I'm writing does this make sense? Am I right here? I think there was one, I was talking about a position on a helper's leg, and you responded and said, no, that the helper was out of position. And the reason he's in that position is he got caught out, and now he's compensating and trying to recover. And I was looking at it as a more athletic move, and you corrected and said, no, that's not what it is. And through that, getting the right messaging and the right visuals out there are helpful. Anyway, I think we strayed a little bit from the canine in sport, but that idea has become, I think, front and center, probably one of the most meaningful and important aspects of what we're doing now. The other we had touched on was the bios, the stories on profiles on the people. I know we did one of you, and we should probably do another one because it's been a while. And there's different chapters to people, right? And usually those come from I'm at an event and I'll hear something. In your case, there's a huge history, right? There's been a fascination, and I wanted to know more. And if I have a curiosity, I know there's probably a lot of people out there that would also enjoy hearing that. And so I see that, and that's the motivation for taking the time to write those. And as you know, they take some time because we have to get the story. Then I got to look at the story and try to understand what it is that we want to say and how we're going to go, and where it's going to go. What's the theme and the message that's
They are
in that
so
story.
well accepted, and they're right now. All of us are expecting them to keep rolling. So don't you dare to stop.
I have like 4 in the hopper right now. I just have to get through this editing. When that happens, that it's time. It's all encompassing. But I've got 4 of them that I'm working on. I'm really looking forward to. But those come from either I'll reach out and I'm curious. There's something that I want to know. There's an itch. I want to know more about this, and it started. I remember. Having Debbie Zappia come to South County for a training seminar. And I'm like, well, who is this person? I was really new in the sport. Now, obviously, Debbie Zappia, world champion, multi-U.S. champion. Yes. She's branched off and started a whole nother dog sport direction. I mean, a profound person in the sport. But I didn't know any of that. It's just, she came over, she's teaching a sit, and I was like in awe on how she taught a sit. The only thing I needed to learn was this. And the whole day we talked about a sit, but at levels of detail that was just fascinating. So there's people out there like me that don't know these stories. I remember when we were training at South County, and I saw in Schützen USA magazine that Mike Deal had won the national championship in 2004. It was early years in 2002. And I didn't know who Mike Deal was at the time, right? I mean, one of the top trainers in the competitors in the U.S. world team. He's placed 3rd at the World Championships.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean,
just top. But I'm going, well, who is this person? Like, how did he win? Like, how could he possibly beat these amazing people that train at the club that I train at? Because I thought they were gods. That when they walked on the field, they were gods. Like, how could Mike Deal have beaten them? And so now I'm in a position, because of the travel, I get, and it's half the allure and fascination and joy of doing this is the chance to go out and see and be around these people, and then to ask the questions. And the other direction or way that these can happen is I'll hear something and it'll catch my interest. An example being Trish Harper.
Yeah.
So she was at AWMA, and she was helping me carry a bag. My hands were full, and she mentioned something about she had gone through. She was really glad to have the dog on the field because she had recently being in the last few years through major brain surgery. And I literally figuratively stopped in my tracks, like, what? Yes. And she said, yeah, but she just said it nonchalantly. I'm like, oh my God, do you have a moment to talk? And we went to the van at the end of the event, and she sat in the van, and we opened a can of beverage, and we sat and talked for an hour, and she told me the story, and I recorded it. And then later I had, when people tell their stories, sometimes it's fragments and pieces, right? And then I had to go back and try to piece this together. And what came through in that story is the insane courage and how humble and brave how brave she was, and how she felt lucky. She felt lucky. Most people would say all these things happen, especially in today's culture, that how I'm a victim. I didn't get what I deserve. And she was just happy that she had the opportunity. And I go, what a profound. And so I had to sit with it and let it percolate. And then the story came out. We wrote one on Dave Croyer. He's been on the world team 15, 17 times. And he's a kind of a legend of his own. And we were at a training a workshop up in Dallas, and Mark Pellin was up there as a helper, a national level helper. And I go, oh, great, he's close. Let's get a chance to go work with him. And he was up there, and I've seen Dave a lot at nationals and around. I mean, because
Of
he's a big
course,
one of
of
the big,
course.
of course. But I don't know Dave. He's a colorful character. He's fun. He's in the middle of all the trouble, always having a blast. And he's a just an insanely good dog trainer and competitor, and incredibly serious about his training.
And he has that X game rush that you shared with him too.
Yeah. But when we were sitting, he mentioned he played in a band. I thought, well, with who? And the people he played with, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like Cher. He traveled on the road in the band with Cher. So I said, hey, can we write the story? And so we spoke for a while, and then as his experiences are beyond the pale. I mean,
Oh
they're
yeah.
like he's off the scale on crazy stuff that's happened in his life, right? So as we're going, I go, well, how do we write this story and how do we tell it? And it just eventually I sat with it for like 6 weeks and I kept coming back to it. I go, oh no, I don't. And I came back and then I sat down one day and I go, Jessica, I'm in that moment. And it just came. And the thing just flowed. In the course of 2 hours, the story just came because I had read it and sort of got a feel for it, and then it came out. But anyway.
Dave says, yeah. I remember, and I don't know what year this was, and I have no idea why we were there, but it was just me and him in somebody's house, and it was literally just me and him sitting across the table, and all of a sudden I hear the stories you're telling me, and then off we go in these conversations about things. But I'm so, he's gonna be AWMA judge now.
I'm so happy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is kind of how we all need to give back in some way, And
I love that he's going to be a judge.
yes,
I absolutely
and
love that. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. I mean, that's the beauty of having, the more people we have in the sport, especially in judging, that really have struggled and suffered and competed and have the good and the bad and the whole roller coaster. These are the best people that you want to have as a judge, because
Totally agree.
they know the good and the bad and the effort and the sacrifice and the luckiness. And when you judge like that, and when you are able to take photos the way you do, and like I think we all have a place where we can contribute, and I hope that more of us find our place and do that.
Yeah. I think one of the happy discoveries, accidental discoveries, surprises is getting to know the judges and the humanity in the judges. Now, it's not universal, of course, right? And judging can sometimes have its own controversies.
Oof,
And
all the time.
any judge sport, and IGP is just like any type of judge sport. It's tough. What
IGP is one
seen-
of the probably the hardest dog sport to be a judge, because
yeah.
so much is left for the judges' understanding and interpretation of the rules and the performance.
Yeah. And so I totally get that. I like when I see they're going to read situations and behaviors a certain way and may interpret them certain ways. And I've experienced where I have had a dog and the judge interpreted things differently than what was actually happening. So I've been on that side of it. But what I really appreciate is where the judge has their opinion, but is consistent on how they read that situation. Then I'm okay with it. So they may see a behavior, but they're going to grade across the board. And on this day, this is how the scoring was done. But it was consistent. I appreciate that, and the ability to read and see things accurately. When I see that, I mean, again, seen a lot of trials in the last 7 years. I don't know how many, but it's been a lot of championship trials. in the last 7, 8 years, 50, 60 championships.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
It's a lot of championships. So not club trials. I'm talking regional or national world
Yeah.
championships. And so some guys just see it. And I know because I look at photos, have a whole different angle. I've seen every single jam that's happened. I mean, I know it. I've got them. And I know when the dog doesn't out and what happened before that. I know, I can see it, right? So it's the quiet part you can't speak of. But what I think I admire most is the humanity. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Mike Caputo is a USCA judge and long-standing judge, super intelligent, knows the sport, nice guy, smart. He's helping guide how judging should be done in the USA. He was on the protection field, and a woman who is somewhat inexperienced or at least inexperienced on a national level. I don't know her background, but at a national level, it's not someone that had frequented a national championship. It was clear. And the dog missed the blinds and had to be DQ'd. And she's standing on the field and her shoulders just dropped and all the air went out of her lungs. And you
My
could just
shoulder
see
just dropped listening to it.
her expression and my heart went down and hit the floor. I wanted to cry for her, right? So you see this and her dreams, her hopes, her everything at that moment, it was worse than that. It was, it's dog sport, but you have hopes hanging on this and you want to go show and you love your dog and your family knows you're going to be there. And it all just came apart and you could see this. And he walks off and I've seen a judge go, DQ, you're done. And actually I've seen a judge turn their back on a handler. Mike went over and he took her hand, he put his hand on her hand, and I couldn't hear, but body language said it all. And he spoke to her for like a minute and a half, right? This routine should have run 7 minutes. And he's sitting, so we have time. And he spent 2 minutes. He was in no rush and is very calm. He's got a dignity to him, right? And I could see the life come back into her. And then as they're finishing, she's smiling. And so he put her back together before she left the field and she came off the field. And it was a beautiful moment, a beautiful moment. An example of this is recently I was at, I'm trying to think, I went to, sometimes I'm sure you run into this. You forget what city you were in because you're traveling all over the place. And I'm on an airplane and I land and I'm in a hotel and I'm in a stadium. So you don't remember where you're at. I'm at the Northwest Regionals and I'm watching some people at regional. This will be their first highest level trials and they're nervous as heck. They're forgetting everything. They stop breathing, yes. Right? And Nathaniel Roque is the judge, and he's a USCA judge, and I think he's director of judges.
He is.
And as they're walking up, he's got a beaming smile for every competitor. So on the checking out and protection, where you have to do the side transport out, and then you check out with the judge, and sometimes these people they're turning pale. And he's got this big smile and just setting it at ease. And the funny thing is I saw it and I remembered one of my earliest trials when I was doing my club trials being super nervous. I remember standing in the blind during obedience and thinking I'm going to pass out because I'm overthinking everything and I'm really saying my respiratory, my dog, I'm checked out with my dog completely because I'm so caught up in the moment. But I remember walking up in protection at the end and seeing him smiling. This was 20 some odd years ago. And just how comforting, how it brought me back to, hey, it's you and your dog and you just did a good thing without saying anything, So massive respect to the judges because I think it was, I'm trying to think of the judge. He judged AWMA just this last April.
Oh my
Spanish
God.
judge.
Don't
I'm going
put me
blank.
on
I'm going
this.
blank on his name. You know who I'm
David
talking about? Suarez.
Garcias.
David Garcia Suarez. Yes. And I saw him in Spain or Italy, and we're at the lunch place, and we're talking about judging, and he goes, "Yep, every time I judge a trial, I lose three friends." Just
Right.
like
Yes.
there's
Yes.
no
Yes.
winning in this, right? You're going to go out, you do all the right things. Someone's not going to be happy. Someone's not going to be happy. So,
David
yeah,
is exceptional.
he's
In my
wonderful.
book, he's an exceptional as a person and as a judge. As a judge, like I've had so many conversations. I mean, I like to talk to people just like you do, and like I remember conversations with him because some people don't know, but I am a judge, but I don't. It's just I don't know. It's for many reasons. It's at least not yet. It's just not my thing. And I believe that you have judges that are very good, but then they get out of focus. Not because they want to screw up somebody, but it's just a human brain that cannot stay on that same task for a long time. I've had conversations with him. I'm like, how do you do it? Because he's like, truly in my book, he's one of the judges that can go through a world championship number of dogs and maintain composure of what he is looking at.
Top, top. Yeah.
And you know, his answer was like, it's not that he's not out of focus or whatever, but it's like the more clear the picture are of what you want to see, you don't get out of focus as I would.
Mm-hmm.
And so there, like, I mean, being a good judge, it's an amazing thing because of being the person that you describe with Nathaniel and Mike Caputo and Dave. You know, like, you have the side that you need to give some support and you need to encourage people even when they have a hard time, and you need to make sure that everybody gets fair evaluation and then appreciate. I mean, it's just so many components of being a good judge. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy
Mm-hmm.
at all. I mean,
Yeah.
huge admiration for the good ones, you know.
Me too. And to have the courage to go out and do it, because you're just gonna face a lot of scrutiny. Everyone's gonna second guess. You've got video camera. You've got one shot to see it. You might not be on the angle to see it. That's a tough job. That's a tough job. And credit to it. I think at one time I wrote respect for the judge and how hard of a job they have. And it got published in SV magazine.
Oh, wow.
It's a picture. Yeah, it was a picture of the Spanish national champion. It's the fellow that won the world championship. And
I
he
know
was a Spaniard.
the older.
Yes.
I can't think of. Man, I'm so bad
I'm
with
going
the
blank
names.
on the name. I feel terrible. I want to be able to say his name. And he's doing a hold and bark, and then the judge is behind. And yeah, I think it's tough to get people to even want to go into that, because the upside, I mean, it's a volunteer work, right? They have
Yes.
to travel.
Yes, that too.
And you're volunteer. You have to spend the time to go out there and then get
Knowingly that there will be people that will be unhappy.
they're inevitably, and most of them don't know what they're talking about, right?
Right.
Because many people are going to have opinions, but they don't know. They don't know. Not that I know, but I don't certainly know that some of the stuff you hear is just like, that's a tough job. It's definitely tough.
Have you seen any other breeds of dogs that don't necessarily make points, but you watching them and you know, besides Malinois and German Shepherds, like when you see a Doberman or which is almost shameful that we have to talk about it like this, but when you see a dog that almost is, nobody expects that kind of breed to even perform anymore, and
Yeah.
kaboom, there it is, and it's showing, and it's full of heart, and training is good, and like, how often you see them when you go at the competitions?
So the trials are segmented segmented into breed championships. As obviously you know, but for the audience, we've got the German Shepherd Nationals, we have Malinois Nationals, and then you have other breed nationals, which are much, much smaller. And then you have all breed championships. So at the World Championship, we have FMBB for the Belgian Malinois, and then we have WSV for the German Shepherds, and then you have FCI for all breeds. So my opportunity to see the dogs is limited because the only time I'll see the other breeds, well, let me go back. The events have to be somewhat large for me to be able to afford to go to the event. I have to take time to make this happen. And there's travel involved and hotels and rental cars. I have to check 6 dogs into daycare. It's expensive to go to an event. There's if I didn't have a day job, I wouldn't be able to do this unless I was on the road, right? So to travel to do these it requires the event to be somewhat big for me to be able to make sense of it. At the end of the day, it has to balance, and the alternate breed championships are typically small, so I don't see them. So I'm not getting the view. My only opportunity is when I shoot the AWDF. The AWDF is one of the primary organizations in the United States aligned with the FCI, and I think they're a subgroup of the FCI. I'm not sure about that, but that's a national championship that has all breeds. And then the USCA, which is a German Shepherd organization, they have one championship a year called the Working Dog Championship, the WDC. It's a very big event. They'll have 80 dogs at that event. So it borders on a world championship level event. It's very big, high caliber dogs. So I generally, with a few exceptions over the last 7-8 years, I've shot all those events. And so AWDF and WDC will have the alternate breeds. I've never shot the FCI. I've shot FMBB and WSV. I can't tell you there's a reason for doing that other than I know a heck of a lot of Malinois people and I want to go shoot them. And I know a ton of German Shepherd people and I want to shoot them. And that's what's drawn me to it. And I want to go to those championships. No other reason. It's not a bias of any other kind. So at the AWDF, which all breed championship in the US, and WDC, there might be a handful of alternate breed dogs. And for the most part, they're not going to be placed in the top. Now, I'll still make great photos for them.
Right.
And I'll enjoy that. And I will post those photos because people want to see this.
People definitely want to see them.
They want to see it. I posted a photo of an Airedale. I can't remember. It was 2 years ago. I can't remember what the event was. I think it was WDC. But the blind blew over and the helper's standing there straight up in the open air as the dog's running blinds. And the dog comes around, and it was a hard blind. It wasn't a soft blind where it just lay flat. So it's sticking up at a weird angle. Like, this is not a picture any dog has ever seen. Nobody prepared for this. And the judge is standing there. This piece of equipment's lying in the middle of the field. This guy's just standing out there, and the dog has to run the blinds. And the dog ran the blind. This Airedale comes in as though the blind's still there. He still came around, and he's halfway in the air, teeth out, looking majestic.
Doing my thing.
And I posted it, and that freaking photo, out of sport, I'll watch the analytics on these photos to see what goes where. Not just how many, but who's looking at these things, right? It's curiosity and it's sport. That's fun. It means nothing. I try not to let that affect what I post because you can have a photo that will go viral. That's not something that you want, right? So the fact that it's going out there doesn't mean it's a good photo, right? But I can't help but to want to peek and see who's looking at these. That freaking everyone looked at this photo of the Airedale. There was a guy, Ozzy, this dog named Ozzy that was a Bouvier de Flanders.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just running the hairs fly. It's hard to believe this dog can get around the field. This is an IGP3 national level dog, and it was cool. And it was an elderly gentleman who was doing his best to get around the field. And this dog's super.
Now think of his name because this
Charlie.
is
Yes. Going back to the side, Charlie something and Ozzy. It was a great combo.
Ozzy, he always had these moments where he would all of a sudden stop on the top of the A-frame and
Yes, you
put
remember that?
everybody
Yes, yes.
heartbeat
He was
stops. It's
everyone
like,
would stop
is
breathing. The
he?
entire
What is he
audience.
gonna do now?
And he would look out there to make sure. Are you
Yes.
guys all out there? Oh, he was epic. And when he walked off the field, he had the loudest cheers of as much as anybody that we've heard. There's been some super Rottweilers. Catherine Sanderson a few years back with Zanuck. I think Zanuck was
Yes,
a
for
really
sure.
big, powerful, super dog. Amy Smith had a Doberman that was super. I think she placed really high.
Yes.
So I can think of a few, and I don't mean any disrespect for other dogs that I haven't mentioned in there, but there's relatively few.
But once again, through the pictures and this kind of stuff, it almost feels like you can help revive and bring back the excitement about this kind of dogs again. You know, like I don't know. I'm optimistic that things like this, because people like it, because it's not the there is that a little element of the unusual, which is, again, it's sad that it's unusual, but it is right now. And I think when people that own this kind of breed and they see these pictures and they see how everybody gets excited about it, maybe it will encourage them to stay with their breed and do things with their breed. You know, that's something that it's I don't think we have a solution how to, but I believe there are good dogs in all breeds, and I wish people that are into one breed, they stay put there and yeah, I don't know.
To your point, I don't remember which event this was, but it was a recent all-breed championship, and you came up and said, why don't you line up a representative for each of the breeds? And I think there was 9 breeds. Do you remember this event?
Yes.
Was it AWDF?
Yes. That was an exceptional, because we truly had...
It was huge. It was 9 breeds.
Yes.
And there was a Marisha Stewart's dog, Cane Corso.
Cane Corso, that's right.
Oh my God, this dog!
That's
It was like something out of like a comic magazine. The power,
Yes,
the
a
shoulders and the
monster.
head,
Yes.
and it was beautifully trained. And so you had mentioned that, and I tried to line the dogs up based on your tip, and I said that's a great idea, but it didn't make a good photo. So we did the next best thing is I took one of each dog breed in a spectacular moment to showcase the spectrum of breeds involved in the sport. And to your point, to extend that reach, because IGP dog sport, I think, somewhat artificially is limited to certain breeds. People look at it as with a somewhat limit, not thinking that their dog can do this. There was a pit bull in there. The Airedale was really rare. I think there was another.
There was a Dobby, there was a Roddy, there was a Schnauzer.
Schnauzer, yes. And actually, but the cool thing
There
is,
was a Dutchie.
there was a Dutch. They were good dogs.
Yes.
It was not just there was representation at that event. There was high level, maybe not depth within the breed, but there was certainly performance that they stood proud against the other dogs. That was the best. I think the best one that I had been.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. That definitely, and I think all of us recognize that. You know, it's like, wow, look at this, including, I mean, who had the pit bull? Oh, it's a Butch Henderson, and
Right,
you know, I mean,
right.
this is a breed that it's looked down everywhere in Europe. They're not even allowed to do IGP. Forget about
Crazy.
even walking them on the street. You know,
Yeah. He had nice. All faces were nice with
Yeah.
that obedience as well. He looked.
it's beautiful to watch the different breeds, because they all have a little different flavor of how they do things. That's just priceless, and
Yeah.
Tell me about your training dogs. What's cooking? What's going on?
So
We
we've
haven't
got a
talked.
we've got a couple of dogs that are up and coming and developing. I've got a Cliff son, so Frank
Okay.
Phillips' dog, Cliff, the one that he took to FCI,
Yeah.
and T. Floyd had a dog that he came in second at the Nationals with Demi Malabeg, a female shepherd. So an offspring of that breeding I have. He's a big, strong dog, and relative to how fast I got through trials, this is the fourth dog I've trained. So my fourth. I had three dogs that I've titled to IGP3, and so this is my fourth dog, and we'll have a trial in 2 months for his two, and I hope to do the regionals in 3 months. He's ready, but took much longer. He's 5 now. He's took much longer than I would have hoped, but bef photography takes a big slice of this time.
Right.
And then living, no excuses, but it is a reality. Living in Houston, the training is more
I
limited.
was just gonna
Temperature,
be my next question. How are you guys managing?
it's much, well, I only say that because of the contrast between living when I lived in Northern California and within an hour there were 9 super high quality clubs. And
Yes, and you were
this,
living in California at that time where
it
there were
was the
really
epicenter. Yeah.
like nests of good
It,
training going
it was
on.
good. Yeah. You could travel a short distance and get some great, ideas and, it was wonderful. And then here, there hasn't been that. We trained on our own. There's a few people that I trained with that I've really enjoyed. A fellow named Chris Oquin, who's a longtime IGP person in Austin, and he helped me on some of the development because this is a big, powerful, very powerful, strong, much stronger than any dog I've ever had, and
Nice.
way outside my skill sets. So I needed some guidance on a dog that's more dominant and reactive. I hadn't experienced that. So, and it's fascinating because it's a whole new learning curve. The training and style of training that I used before was not, it was clear very early that he was going to have his way. So I needed some help. And then T Floyd, who was the breeder, has been guiding me a little bit. He
Nice.
recommended that I see Chris Oquin for foundation work in the protection. Obedience, the dog has drive, up like crazy amount of drive to do that. Tracking is very difficult here in Houston because fire ants and it's hot.
Oh, you
So
guys also have the fire ants, right?
yeah. So fire ants will get in a dog's nose and then they don't want to put their nose down on the ground. And you put a piece of food and the ants are on it for 9 months of the year. So that's the phase that's the most delayed of all of them. And then I'm working with Paul Freeney, a helper here in Houston. I got fortunate to discover him here, and he's a talented helper and very helpful and consistent, and he's solid helper. So I'm enjoying it. Jessica has a Slovakian import that's a very young dog, 2.5, of open, super temperament, extreme drive, solid aggression, just a good all-round dog that is just now starting to awaken and become like whoa, like really nice dog. We got him from Dennis Solden had found him, and through Frank Phillips was aware of the dog. And he reached out and told Jessica, "Hey, there's this dog," and we saw some videos, and she imported him, and so we have these two young dogs. She hopes to get a BH here in this
Yeah,
spring.
Frank pays attention of what is out there for sure.
Yeah.
He's
Well, we
good
had
at
mentioned that the next year Jessica would want another working dog because her dog has retired, and then he said, "Hey, this is earlier than we talked about, but there's this dog," and he showed the videos, and it looked great, and it's turned out to be. I mean, talk about polar opposites and styles of dogs. Mine's a 100-pound beast of a dog that I walk him 4 miles a day to bring him down. So I can
Wow.
get him into a mindset that he's calm, and I can guide him. And this other dog is just guidable. Like he wants to listen, super smart, just wants to listen. So
I know
yeah,
Jessica also. She truly likes the helper work as well.
she loves it.
Do you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
do sometimes train your hour dogs just you and her, or
She does.
Yeah.
So especially at the beginning, she's really good at develop. She loves that. She loves puppies and she loves development work, and she's very athletic. She's a paramedic and she's really strong.
Yeah.
So I mean, she can do
Oh, she
tons of pull-ups and
moves.
push.
Yeah, no
She's a
question.
strong gal. As strong as most, stronger than most guys if they're not training. She's very powerful, and she's got really good. Thomas Paine in South California helped guide her through her development, and she's a very very good helper. So she does help her work on Paul's dog, and she did a lot on Desmo, my dog, until Desmo got really really big. And there's not a dog. Most helper. I don't want to say too much about him because I still have to get through these trials, and I don't want to be embarrassed. But like helpers, he stops every helper on the escape. He just takes them and twists them behind it. And there was a point where we're going. She can't because she's 120 pounds, and the dog weighs 100 pounds. And so we said, well, we need to get some help here. And we found Paul through John Landry as someone that we know of in the working dog community. And he said, hey, Paul's in Houston. And I've never met him. We reached out. We were able to make a connection through that. But yeah,
Great.
She does help work. I don't do help work. I could do the stand in the blind,
Stay in the
and
blind.
back transfer, but I'm not going to catch a dog with motorcycle injuries. I've got too many things that are barely taped together. I would come apart really quick.
What's your favorite phase? If you like, what is like the one you feel like you really enjoy out of the three things?
I love training obedience. I love obedience, and I love protection. I love them. I mean, I love these sports.
So would tracking be because of just the climate, or it's just not coming naturally?
I think I can't wait to show my dog in protection and obedience because I'm very proud of where he's at, and I know when we go out there, we prepared and we're in a good place, and the energy and emotions between us, we work as a team.
Yeah.
And when we go on the field, that dog is responsive, but he's also independent, and it's a great feeling. I love it. I can't wait to get on the field with them, but I don't want to rush it. I want it to be in the right spot. I don't feel that in tracking. I'm just not as naturally. I don't understand this tracking as well, so that's part of it. And then I think it's compounded that I don't get the repetitions. When I lived in Northern California, I got a lot of tracks in because it's easy to track. I either had dirt or I had grass, and I didn't have ants. So I was able to track year round, and I got a lot of tracks in. On a year, I'd get 400 tracks in. 300 tracks. I don't want to say 400. I'd get a solid 300 tracks in at least, which for some people might be nothing, but it was a lot. There's no way I'm getting 300 tracks in Houston. There's no way. It's just not. I mean,
No,
I have
it's
to.
the same in Florida. Like
It's not.
right now, just because it's December and we are exciting looking at the weather on the phone. It's like, oh, it's going to be 56 degrees. And it's like this excitement. And it doesn't matter how tired we are, what we are. We know it's like unspoken.
Yeah.
We are going trucking because you have no choice.
I don't know. So I don't know when we'll move, but if we move, that will be a reason why we'd move.
Oh, wow.
Tracking. So dog sport. Dog sport, I view dog sport as a lifestyle. The way that surfing is a lifestyle, way that when a person is in music or in as a racer, you lived that life. And although I have a day job, my life is very much guided by dogs, whether it's photography, training. I live for those moments. I loved it. I love it. I love the way the dog reacts. I love our energy together. I love talking about it afterwards and going and sitting down and having meals and talking about what happened and the good moments, the bad moments, and strategy. And I love discovering new solutions. We recently went up and trained with T. Floyd up in Dallas, and he had an interest in the dog because it's out of his breeding. And then he later said, "You've done a really nice job with this dog. I'm surprised how good he looks." And I was beaming the whole way home.
Right.
I'm like, this is the breeder, and he's the straight shooter guy. He said it. He's not going to just throw that out there. He's a tough guy, and he's all like he says your secondary obedience because he's a hard dog, and he's like, you've done a great job with that secondary obedience. Still got to work on some of the first hand obedience here, but we love it, and so as time unfolds, I could imagine that we would migrate at some point. That's what we hope, to an area that
Okay.
has higher concentration of well, better tracking. That's uh, that's on the list, and then higher concentration of training. But I'm very grateful for the people we have here. Chris O'Coin and his girlfriend Heather are good friends of ours, and we get to train with them. Not this year so much, but in the past on a monthly basis. And then Paul Freedy has been great. Um, and then we go to, when people are in town, we'll be seeing uh, uh, George Sauer. He's coming. Dennis Holden's going to be coming here, and T. Floyd's coming here in the next 2 months. So
Okay,
as
yeah.
they come
That's
to town, we have the chance to, or within town, we're in Texas, so it might be a 2 or 3 hour drive for us to get to, but we get the chance to see people. And often you'll see that. I was just saying, when you get to when we saw T in one session, we got some real clarity on things, and it's wonderful because you get in a routine, and I look forward to getting home, getting changed, getting the dog out, playing a little bit, and then getting into the action. He wants to work. That's like, he lives for it, and I live for it. And then we'll get like, there's just this little sticking point. And he looked and he said, we were talking about how when I'm doing the motions, this weird thing in the dog's head where he's straight on heeling, and then I would say Platz and down in an in motion exercise, and he would go into it. He would cock into an angle. I couldn't figure it out. I can't undo it. It's like, I can't figure, like, he's straight. He is straight. He's in position. This dog looks good, and he's fast, and he's in it. His ears are up, tails. He's just like, let's go. And then I say, Platz, go sideways. And on the sit, he's like at a 45-degree angle.
interesting. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't get it. And so he said, well, and I've got my hand on the inside, and he says, try your hand on the outside. I know it's going to cost you a point, but just try this. Let's see what happens. Dog was perfectly straight.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand. My mind was blocked. I had given up. I said, I'm going to give up these points. There's nothing I can do. It is what it is. And he had this little. He's just looking at it. He has this little idea, and then these little. And again, I don't want to give away his training techniques and stuff, but there was a snap to a down that I was trying to get, and he was slower into a down. And I want to do fun training. One of the things that I mentioned that I really enjoyed with meeting you is you trained the way that I wanted to train. I felt good about what was happening. And there's corrections, totally fair, but it's thoughtful. You're always looking for the angle to let the dog understand what it is that you're asking, and make it a game so the dog wants to get there before you. And T had this for the down. And so I'm struggling because he's just slow, and I don't want to go super pressure. I just want to just balance.
Correct.
And he had this little technique, and I'm like, oh my God. And everyone's sitting there going, oh my God. I'm like, that was worth the 4-hour drive up here. That right there. And so the dog sport lifestyle, those things for us give us great joy.
That's like the, whatever that plumber's saying, the knowing where to tap on the pipe.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly
But that
what
only
it is.
took you 5 minutes to fix. How could that cost you $30,000 or $10,000?
Right.
But knowing exactly what to do to get that, I think the analogy I heard was the mechanic that makes the ship engine work, and he tapped it with a red hammer, and he got it working. He charged him $10,000.
Yeah.
Because you didn't pay for the tap. You
Those
paid
are
to get
the
your
moments
engine ready.
that get you excited too, though. So excited.
Oh, I love it.
These little moments, it's like.
I love it.
So
And then
what are you
when
going to do?
With what?
I mean,
With-
I can see how there will be the moment that you're going to actually have to decide, do you show the dog in this competition, or are you going to
This
be
is
the
coming tough
photographer?
because this is the year. This
It's
is the year
coming.
we'll have 3, and we're going to be in a conundrum.
And where you are in the photography, it's so important to be there. But then
I know
you've
I
put
know.
the work and it's showtime.
I don't know.
So what are you going to do?
We don't know. So I think what we'll have to do is see if we can find a balance where, because we are 2 photographers, and nobody is we're the only 2 photographer show. That I mean, I have seen more trials as a photographer than most people, that anybody that I know, and I'm a photographer. And nobody shows up with the amount of gear that we have, the caliber of gear that we have, and the number of people that we have. Nobody. There doesn't exist at any world championship. So even if Jessica stands in for me for while I'm on the field, we're at least on par with any other option. So what I'm thinking is I don't know how this, I'm thinking out loud. The balance might be we go to an event and I photograph, except for the time I go on the field.
Oof.
And then I go on the field and I've got to get in the mode. It's tough. I don't know.
It could help
I,
you. Sometimes I have had competitions where something like this was the case, that I had to do something else. And it actually was good for me because it kept me away of overtraining, over analyzing,
yeah,
So I was like,
I
okay,
agree.
let's go and do our thing.
I agree. The only thing would be is if it's late in the day and I'm exhausted because I'm tired in the afternoon. I'm tired. There's just no faking it. So I will run on default mode as you're getting late because I mean every dog on the field I'm doing 20, 30 squats
Right.
or lunges, right? So by the time we're at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, if I'm late in the day, then I'm going out there. I'm beat. I'm beat, and the dog. I don't. I somehow we find a balance. Maybe I don't shoot the event and we compete, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. I still have to get through these trials. I have to get through tracking. Um, and even at that, I don't think we have any hope of getting high placement because of our tracking scores. But I'm so excited to show his obedience and protection because it's a joyful show, and he's a powerful dog that we've managed to Rubik's Cube solve a lot of things and bring out a very nice dog. He shows nicely. He obviously has a lot of fun doing this, and
Yeah.
he's a very powerful animal. So I'm looking forward to getting that chance. If it happens, I'll be grateful. If it doesn't happen, I'm grateful for being able to photograph the
Of
events.
course.
So either way, it's a win. I'll tell you something that's crazy that happened here when we shot AWMA. When I shot, because that one I did solo, I have support from Nikon on cameras, and they send me gear to use. I'm not sponsored, but I'm. It's part of a program that they have, and if you're a
Sure,
pro
you've been long
photographer,
enough in the industry.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you're published and stuff. They there's some qualification criteria, but anyway, they send, and it's usually pristine gear. They're the most amazing company. And again, I'm not sponsored. I buy my gear, but they lend me gear, and which is very helpful because I would buy a body every year, and I have two bodies. Those bodies cost $6,000, $7,000 each. So that's part of the amortized expense that I've got to depreciate over the course of a year, a $7,000 camera. And so when this happened, it was like, oh, this is huge. This makes this takes a lot of the stress off this. And so they send these cameras and they're usually totally reset and they're perfect. And so I get to AWMA and it's just me. And so I grab one of the cameras and that was a smaller venue, right? So it wasn't a full stadium.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have a shorter, really exotic lens. It's a 120 to 300 f2.8. What that means is it's got a very big optical element at the front that brings in a lot of light very fast. So it's a specialty lens. And then I own that lens. And then I have this state-of-the-art body that they sent. Somehow this camera did not go through their check system when it got returned to them, and they sent it out. Never had this happen. So I shot the event, and there was particles on the sensor,
Oh.
red lint. And I get back in, and I normally go through, and I've marked, these aren't necessarily the best photos, but I marked some photos so I can post, and I like to try to promote the event. It's good. The timing is that it's right away, and you get some stories, and it's good. It's good for the sport. It's good for just on a lot of different levels, and it's a sort of a ritual we have. So we get back to the hotel. I download the photos while I'm showering, getting fresh. I come back, pick some photos out, write some quick stories. Then I get to relax and go eat and have socialize, and then we start over. And I pull the first photo up, and it's got red splotches on it. I'm like, my heart sunk. I shot 8,000 photos today with this
Oh
camera.
boy.
And I'm thinking, what on earth? And so I wrote them and they said, "We're so sorry," and they FedExed another camera out. I mean, they're just an amazing
Wow.
company. That's just like this would never happen. It's never happened. I've used them, never. Somehow there was a mistake happen, but I'm still stuck with 8,000 photos that have red blotches on them.
Right.
So 8,000, you have a call rate of about 95%, right? So like I said, I shoot 1,000, you're going to deliver 50 on a complete package. Then we have a little economy package that's less, but on average, 50, 60 photos.
That's
So
insane.
it's a
That's insane.
5% keep rate. So 5% of these 8,000, I've still got 400 some odd photos. I've got to go through each image and individually fix the image in Photoshop. It's like you can't plan for this. So I go, and I can't let these photos go. Like if I sent it, you could probably not notice because it's small.
Right.
Because when I'm editing, I have it big, but I go, but I know it's out
But you
there.
know.
I know it's out there. So I went in, I took each one into Photoshop, and I kind of know where it is mapped out to fix it. And I go in and I fix those. You can, because my background's portraiture, and you do a lot when you do portraiture, right? So I know how to fix the photo, but I had to fix every one of the photos and then send them out. So it delayed things. I was like, when it was done, it was like this huge weight off the shoulders. But it's one of those things where you face these challenges that you can't expect. What that WDC when they had the rain, the fog
Yeah.
when we were over at AWMA where you couldn't see anything and you had to somehow make pictures. People still want their photos. They want a story to tell, and you have to deliver that.
Yes.
There's been I can't remember the event when it was 95 degrees and I'm melting and dying at the end. The World Championship where we had the tiny area that we had to work in, and you had to make it happen until they gave us more space. But you're saying, does your heart rate? Yes, your heart goes up because at the beginning you asked me that question because you think you're prepared, but inevitably you're going to get problem solving,
That's like
and
tracking.
that's what makes it awesome. You have to think something's going to happen, and you've got to think on your feet. You maybe have never seen it before, but somehow you gotta figure it out, and that's what makes it, I think, fun and exciting and memorable.
How much is AI playing anything in your industry, and
So
where is that going for you?
I don't know where that's going. So photography is becoming more accessible, right? So an iPhone now can be your little walk around camera. You can use an iPhone and the quality of the image as a snapshot is phenomenal. When I say snapshot, that means it's just a capture of the scene that's in front of you. There's no depth of field or there's nothing, you're not controlling anything, speed of shutter speed, depth of field, you don't control anything. On action photography, it's still requiring that the photographer know what to do because the camera, even today's cameras, they don't know what the hell you're doing,
Right.
right? You can say action photography and try to get the settings. You cannot shoot what we do on automatic. You have to shoot manual, and you need to know what you're shooting. And you still need these long lenses. But what we're seeing in the post production, it's getting easier. So you can hit filters, and it will read the software. And this is one of the things we're going to start sharing more is on our photography because literally I'm not worried about sharing the info. I want to do it. It's good. It's good for the sport for more people to have the photos. And if someone can out hustle me, then great. I've got to raise my game. It'll push that,
That's
right?
right.
So we
That's
will be
right.
doing that over the winter. But you can hit presets and it will apply a theme or a look to the picture, and so that takes a lot of it away.
A
But
big
it's
chunk
all,
of the work can.
but it's not the same because it's heavily seasoned and it's obvious to someone who's looking at it
Yes.
that that's a filter. Like I look at it, to me, I would not want to have 50 images that look that way. If you did one that's kind of cutesy and that's cool, that's an effect, I don't want a real photo. The photographer needs to be invisible. You need to go through that, and you're living that scene, and it's perfectly rendered, and it's
It's crazy,
framed.
even how you describe it. It's crazy.
Well, and even when you have AI, you still have to be able to frame a photo and choose what you're putting in the frame, the field of view, how long a lens you're going to use to create this image, how you're choosing to do that, the lighting the angle that you're shooting. Like I'll often shoot and I'll be looking for a soft light on the cheeks of the person with the light on the side, and a few feet will make the difference. A camera, AI is not going to do that. You can try to artificially put that on there. It's nowhere close
Right.
to as good. So where it's helpful is occasionally when I shoot, if you're getting aggressive and risky, you're pushing in very, very close, and it gives you very little forgiveness on framing. Right? It's the best quality photo has no wasted pixels. I use every pixel to get the subject. The easy shot is to shrink the subject, and I could be drunk and get the picture. But the picture is not going to be nearly as good when you fill that frame. You have to crop it. So we're trying to fill the frame. And when you do that, sometimes you'll cut corners. And when I say cut corners, the framing will be when you straighten it so that your horizon's correct. The corner will be cut off, and they have software that fills those
Can
pixels
make
in.
up for it. Yeah.
And that's pretty darn cool. That's pretty cool. So that's it. You know,
Can
I
you
look at
can you ask it like if you give the like the whatever the weather and everything, would it be able to advise you good enough watch lens and how to set up the camera for optimal
oh
shots?
yeah, so that information is already there's programming on the camera that you can set those settings, and it's a general ballpark, and it gets you there. So it's like when someone says, "What kind of e-collar should I get? I want to start training." It doesn't matter.
Sure.
You have to know how to use this stuff.
Yeah.
What kind of camera? Doesn't matter. You've got to go through the basics, and you got to get repetitions.
That's very
and
good
develop
analogy.
an eye. And you got to learn how to see what and you got to see the picture because you're going to make the picture. You've got to know what you're going to shoot before you shoot it. Now, then you got to be in the right spot waiting for that moment to happen. That's the next level. And then you got to be able to do this when you're exhausted, and you're subconsciously just acting now. You're not even, because you're just exhausted, because you're literally going to I don't care how in shape you are. It's 8 hours into photographing a world championship and it's 40 degrees out.
Oh, I see you. Sometimes, I take pictures of you and send you meanwhile as you're shooting because it's crazy when I'm watching you all day.
Yeah.
It's without a doubt, this is tasking on your body and your brain. There's no question.
If you were to catch me at a moment of weakness, I go, what the hell am I doing? But afterwards, I'm so glad because what fuels you is you have these hours to capture the photos. Those hours are they're fleeting. They're an opportunity, and it's gone. So you get it then. You have all the time in the world to edit later. Yeah, people get impatient, but the impatience is gone once they see their photos and they love them. But if you didn't capture them because you didn't put the work in, that would not be good. So when I'm exhausted, what's driving is you've got to be able to deliver as a pro of your craft,
Right.
and being proud of what you do. And if my name is on a photo, I want consistency and I want that quality, and I want it to have a brand recognition. And it matters. It's important to me. This is something I love, and each one is something important. So I'm making those photos, and I'm looking, and no one's more disappointed. I work hard. You'll see that if I've missed a shot, because I don't care who you are, you're going to miss shots. It's going to happen. The autofocus captures the chain link fence behind instead of the dog. It's a black dog. It can't see the contrast. And then you're going to see me like going crazy, running to make up for it. I got to get something else. I got to get something else. I need a money shot now because I missed that shot. So, but that's fun. That's the challenge to make sure that they love their photos and that you've done something.
So
it's crazy.
do you have things lined up already, or you don't know quite what's up 24?
So we usually plan 6 months in advance.
Okay.
I need that lead time because there's a lot involved. I have to schedule with my work.
Yeah.
I have to buy plane tickets, and And if I wait to the last minute, it's not cost effective. I can't do it, right? So this all has to be planned. So our tentatively the game plan, and then it's subject to being selected because you don't know. There can be lots of factors of what happens and
Right.
who gets what gig. So at this point, going into 2024, I know for sure we'll be shooting AWDF and WDC for the beginning of the year.
That's great.
Yeah, and
That's
then
great.
yeah, I don't think we're going to shoot FMVB this year. It's just it's going to be tough for us to figure this because I need
Italy
the
is a
title.
good place to go, though.
I'm dying. It's killing me. But this is the year we're trialing, and I need the time off to trial my dog.
There you go.
And I'm trying to get this balance. So if we weren't trialing my dog, we would be doing Italy.
Yeah.
Because that singularly is my favorite country to shoot in.
One of the very best experiences at competitions, for whatever reasons, have been as a team.
Everything,
yeah.
the country, the organization there, the passion of the people. It's an amazing place to do dog sport.
Same.
So we are going to miss that one. So we can get through these trials, and then later in the year we'll see how that plays out. But we do plan on doing WSV in Germany, and then if we get selected, I'd love to do AWMA, the Malinois Championship, and the USCA National Championship for German Shepherds, which will be in the end of the year.
Okay.
And that will be it. I often will fill in with some portrait work, dog portrait work in between. But we have other activities that we want to fit in that we play with. I like go-karting, race carts.
Oh, wow.
So I have a race cart. We got the Ducatis behind
I
us. So
see
we do
them.
track days with the Ducatis.
I see the little monsters there.
Panigale, yeah.
Nice.
And then we want to do road trips with the camping, and then also dirt biking. So there's a lot of things going on here for the in the time that we're trying to squeeze in. So we're restricting it to 5 events this year, and then I hope to do these dog trials, and then later this year we'll see about doing the national. If we get picked for the nationals, that would be really cool. But
Awesome.
Pretty full year planned.
Brian, that was a super conversation.
I enjoyed it too.
I just want to tell all the dog sport people that whenever you guys like a photo, that hopefully you got a good feel of what it takes and how much passion and effort goes into. Please don't crop the outer. Don't take the outer out of the photo. It's just like breaks my heart when I see it. And I don't know how you feel about this, but
me too.
It's
And
one
no
of
filters.
the worst things to do.
Don't put a filter on it.
Right.
Yeah, those two. But it's
whenever credit has to be, it's so easy. It stays there. It makes the picture even more authentic, right?
Yeah. I like to think that, but I become less concerned about that.
Interesting.
It doesn't. At the beginning, I think at the beginning you're hypersensitive, and it doesn't. If someone sees that and that's what they want, that's okay. And I've made a point trying to provide images to organizations that are trying to do the right cause. There was a calendar not 2 years ago where it went to wounded warriors, and I gave them the photos.
Nice.
I made that calendar. When that book on the German Shepherd
Yes.
book that we just did the interview on. Those photos, I was happy to participate. I think they're trying to do the good thing when organizations need that stuff. We want to do some promotional videos this winter. That's one of our project things.
Very cool. And I'll keep my fingers crossed that you guys somehow will find time and make some cool calendar, because I would want it.
I think we'll have to put that on the list.
I would want it. I should talk to Jessica maybe if needed. Brian, hope to see you soon somewhere. It was a lot of fun talking to you, man.
I hope to see you soon too. Thank you so much.
All right, my friend. Take care.